Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Cryptic Corpse. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now, find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Daniel Hargrove. I'm 41 years old, and I guess you could call me a farmer now. Before all this happened, I was just a man who knew a thing or two about making plants grow in places they shouldn't. I lived through the Dust Bowl as a kid, watched our crops wither and die while dirt filled the sky. That changes a person, watching everything you love choke under an ocean of dust. When I got the letter saying I'd inherited a farm from some relative I'd never even heard of, I didn't think much of it. Another worthless patch of dust in Oklahoma, I figured. But Eleanor, my wife, she saw it differently. A fresh start, she called it. After losing our third baby, maybe we both needed that. I still remember the first time we drove up to the property. Dust and dead fields as far as the eye could see, and then suddenly, this perfect circle of green. Like God had dropped a coin of paradise right in the middle of hell. The grass was so green it hurt my eyes to look at it. The farmhouse was old but solid. The previous owner had left pretty much everything behind. Furniture, tools, even clothes. In the closets. Like they just walked out one day and never came back. There were pictures on the walls of stern-looking folks standing in front of the same house, going back what looked like 100 years. All of them had the same eyes. My eyes, I realized. It was Eleanor who found the root cellar first. "Danny," she called out, her voice echoing up from beneath the kitchen floor. "You need to see this." I didn't know it then, but that root cellar was the mouth of something hungry, something that had been waiting for us for a very long time. The first season on the farm was like a dream. I'd never seen soil like this, black and rich and smelling so alive it made your head spin a little. I put seeds in the ground and they'd be poking up by morning. By the end of the month, we had corn taller than me. "It's a miracle," Eleanor would say, her hands deep in the dirt, a smile on her face I hadn't seen since before the miscarriages. She took to the farm like she'd lived there her whole life. She'd walk the fields at dawn, checking the plants, talking to them sometimes when she thought I wasn't listening. Meanwhile, all around us, the other farms were dying. No rain for months, the drought squeezing the life out of everything. But not our land. Our perfect circle stayed green. Jacob Wilkins from the next farm over came by one afternoon. His face was weathered like old leather, eyes squinting against the constant dust. "Hargrove," he said, not even bothering with hello. "You need to be careful with this place." "Careful of what?" I asked, offering him water that he wouldn't drink. "The soil," he said, looking past me to where Eleanor was working in the garden. "It needs feeding. Proper feeding. If you don't give it what it wants." He trailed off, shaking his head. Before I could ask what he meant, he was back in his truck. That was the last time I saw Jacob Wilkins. A dust storm blew through a week later, and folks said he just wandered out into it. Never found a body. I might have thought more about his warning if I wasn't so distracted by what I found when plowing the east field. The plow hit something with a crack, and when I dug down, I found roots unlike anything I'd ever seen. They were thick as my arm in places, with strange hard sections that looked almost like bones. I told myself they were just calcified from minerals in the soil, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they didn't belong to any plant I knew. I started keeping a journal, recording the harvest numbers. They didn't make sense. We were getting 3, sometimes 4 times what even good land should produce. I sent some samples to the Agricultural College in Stillwater. The letter I got back was full of questions. What fertilizer was I using? What irrigation system? They didn't believe the numbers. That fall, I noticed something odd about the corn. The kernels were arranged in patterns I'd never seen before, almost like they were forming shapes. Looking at them made me dizzy sometimes. And the wheat. When I cut myself on farm equipment and bled on some grain, the blood didn't stain it, red like it should. Instead, the wheat seemed to absorb it, like it was drinking. Eleanor started sleepwalking that winter. I'd wake up at night to find her side of the bed empty. The first time it happened, I panicked until I found her in the north field, standing, barefoot in the cold dirt, her arms moving in strange patterns over the soil. When I brought her back inside, she had no memory of it, but there was dirt packed under her fingernails and a peaceful smile on her sleeping face afterward. That was also when our animals started changing. We had a small herd of cattle and some chickens when we arrived. Their offspring weren't right. The calves had heads too big for their bodies, and their eyes. There was something in them that shouldn't be in a cow's eyes, something knowing. And one of the roosters had what looked like thumbs growing from its wings. I killed it and buried, but deep, not telling Eleanor. As winter turned to spring, I was checking the root cellar for any damage from the frost when I found a door I hadn't noticed before. It was built into the back wall, almost the same color as the dirt. Behind it was a room filled with glass jars and old notebooks, yellow with age. The jars contained plants I'd never seen before. Some looked like corn, but with structures like human fingers growing from the husks. Others held what appeared to be wheat with root systems that spread out like a human nervous system. The notebooks went back to the 1850s. The handwriting changed every few decades, but the work continued. Detailed drawings and notes about combining plant and animal characteristics. In the margins of one book from 1923, someone had written, "The soil has consciousness. It learns. It remembers." I should have burned it all right then, should have taken Eleanor and run as far as we could. But instead, I took a sample of soil from beneath the house to look at under the microscope that was set up in that hidden laboratory. What I saw changed everything. The soil wasn't just dirt. It was alive with tiny organisms, moving not like random microbes but like cells with purpose. As I watched, they formed connections, creating patterns that reminded me of the way nerves connect in a brain. Our perfect circle of green wasn't just good farmland. It was awake. Spring came, and with it, things got stranger. I tried to act normal, like we were just lucky farmers with good soil. But deep down, I knew better. Our animals kept changing. One morning, I went to check on a new calf born the night before. Its head was too big for its body, just like the others. But when I leaned in close, it opened its mouth and made a sound that wasn't a moo. It sounded like it was trying to say a word. I slammed the barn door shut and didn't tell Eleanor. The soil itself seemed to move when we weren't looking. I'd till a field perfectly flat in the evening, and by morning, there'd be patterns in the dirt. Circles and lines that reminded me of the diagrams in my old high school biology textbook. Pictures of nerves and brains. Our well water changed too. It tasted sweeter somehow. I sent a sample to be tested, and the results came back saying it had almost the same makeup as the fluid that surrounds babies in the womb. Eleanor couldn't get enough of it. I found myself craving it too, getting headaches when I drank regular water from town. Eleanor was changing the most. One night, I woke up to find her standing naked in front of our bedroom mirror, running her fingers over strange lines under her skin. They looked like veins, but were green instead of blue. When the sun hit them the next day while she worked, in the garden, they seemed to glow. "Don't you feel it, Danny?" she asked me, her hands deep in the soil. "It's talking to us." I pretended not to know what she meant. In the hidden room in the root cellar, I found more journals. The most recent ones talked about the Dust Bowl, calling it a dormancy cycle for whatever lived in our soil. The writer, who I guessed was my unknown relative, seemed excited about it, like the dust storms were a good thing. "It sleeps to gather strength," one entry read. "When it wakes, it will be hungry." The crops grew in perfect patterns now, straight lines and perfect circles that no human hand could plant. From our farmhouse roof, I could see how the whole property looked like some giant circuit board, with the plants forming connections between different parts of the land. One day, the miller's boy from 3 farms over wandered onto our property. He was only 7, had gotten lost looking for his dog. I found him standing in the middle of our cornfield, staring up at the plants with his mouth open. I brought him back to the house, gave him water, store-bought, not from our well, and drove him home. A week later, Mrs. Miller came by, frantic. Her boy was different, she said. He could remember everything he read, word for word, and his skin. She pulled up his sleeve to show me patches that looked greener in the sunlight. I told her it was probably just a weird rash and sent her away. But I knew. He'd been touched by whatever lived in our soil. I cut my hand pretty bad fixing the tractor that same week. Without thinking, I grabbed a handful of dirt to stop the bleeding, an old farm habit. The cut closed up within hours, not even leaving, a scar. By nightfall, I'd forgotten it had even happened until I washed the dirt off and saw the fresh pink line where the deep gash had been. That night, I went out with a shovel and dug down, deep as I could go. About 6 feet down, I hit something that wasn't rock. It was a root thicker than my leg, pulsing slightly like it had a heartbeat. I followed it with another hole a few yards away. Same thing. And another. The whole farm was sitting on top of some massive root system, all connected. When I got back to the house around dawn, Eleanor was waiting for me at the kitchen table. Her hands were folded over her stomach, and she was smiling in a way that made my skin crawl. "I'm pregnant, Danny," she said, but her voice was different, like there was an echo behind it. "It's growing so fast. It's special." I wanted to be happy. God knows we'd tried for years to have a child. But when she took my hand and placed it on her belly, it was already swollen like she was months along, not days. And beneath my palm, I felt movement that wasn't like any baby I'd ever felt. It was like something with too many limbs, turning and unfolding. That afternoon, I drove into town to use the library. I needed to know more about this land, about the families who'd owned it before. The librarian helped me find old newspapers and county records. Every generation, the farm had one owner. Always just one child born to each family who lived there. And every time there was a drought or dust storm, the family would disappear. The farm would sit empty for a while, then some distant relative would inherit it. And the cycle would start. Again. The papers from the Dust Bowl years called our farm the Miracle Farm, because it stayed green when everything else died. There were theories about underground springs or special farming techniques. But in a small article from 1936, a local preacher was quoted saying the farm was an abomination before God, and that the soil was fed with blood and bone. As I drove home, the sun setting behind me, I realized something terrible. The farm hadn't belonged to 5 different families over the generations. It had been the same family all along, and now it was mine. When I got back to the farm that night, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No crickets, no frogs from the pond, not even the rustle of leaves in the wind. It was like everything was holding its breath. Eleanor wasn't in the house. I found her in the root cellar, sitting on the dirt floor, wearing only her nightgown despite the cool air. Her belly was even bigger now, like she was 7 or 8 months along instead of just a few days. "It's time you understood," she said, when I came down the stairs. Her voice still had that strange echo like someone else was talking along with her. "The Earth Eater wants to show you." "What's an Earth Eater?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Eleanor smiled and the dirt around her moved. Not like it was falling or being pushed. It moved like water, flowing up her arms and across her legs without leaving a mark on her white nightgown. "It's what lives here," she said. "It's been here since before people. It was asleep for a long time. Then a piece of rock fell from the sky and woke it up." As she spoke, the dirt floor of the cellar began to part, revealing a tunnel going down. A soft light pulsed from deep below, green and alive. "Come," she said, standing up. "It wants to meet the father of our child." I should have run, should have gotten in my truck and never looked back. But I followed her down that tunnel, into the heart of whatever had been living under our farm all this time. The tunnel opened into a huge cave, bigger than seemed possible. The walls glowed with the same green light, pulsing like a heartbeat, and spread throughout the cave was the most horrible, most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It looked like the inside of a person and the inside of a plant had been mixed together. There were giant roots that pumped fluid like veins, bulbs that opened and closed like lungs taking breaths, and tangled in it all were people, or what used to be people. I recognized Jacob Wilkins, the neighbor who'd disappeared in the dust, Storm. His body was half buried in the wall, roots growing through his chest and out his back. But his eyes were open, and they followed me as I moved. "They're not dead," Eleanor said, touching a root tenderly. "They're part of it now. Part of the Earth Eater." "What is this thing?" I whispered, afraid to speak too loud. The whole cave seemed to shift at my question. The light pulsed faster. And then a voice spoke. Not out loud, but in my head. It felt ancient and huge, like trying to hear a mountain talk. "I am. Adaptation. I am survival. I am the next step." Eleanor nodded like she heard it too. "It's been working for millions of years to create the perfect life form. One that can survive anything. Drought, heat, cold, even the end of the world." She led me deeper into the cave where there were rows of what looked like glass boxes growing right out of the roots. Inside each one was something that looked halfway between a plant and an animal. "It's been trying different combinations," she explained. "Plant and animal DNA mixed together. Each generation of our family helped it get closer." "Our family?" I asked. "The Hargroves," she said. "They've always been here, helping it. Every time it needs to grow stronger, it takes one of us fully into itself. Then it calls another one home." I suddenly understood why I'd never heard of the relative who left me the farm. Why I'd felt drawn to this place even before I knew it existed. "It's in your blood too, Danny," Eleanor said, taking my hand and placing it on a root. As soon as I touched it, I felt something flow into me. Memories that weren't mine. People working this land going back hundreds of years. Each one finding the root cellar. Each one making the same choice. "The drought is coming back," Eleanor continued. "Worse than before. The Earth Eater knew. It needs to evolve again to survive. That's why it called us here. That's why it needed us to make a child. Together." She placed my hand on her swollen belly. What I felt wasn't a normal baby kicking. It was something else. Something with too many limbs that moved in ways a human baby never could. "What's inside you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "The next step," she said simply. "Not just plant, not just animal, not just human. Something better." The Earth Eater's voice filled my head again. "Your kind destroys, consumes, dies, but together we can be more." As if to show me what it meant, the cave walls shifted, and I saw the inside of what looked like a cow, still alive but opened up. Its organs were being slowly replaced by plant-like structures. The cow's eyes were calm, like it felt no pain. "It can change us," Eleanor said. "Make us better. We won't need to eat animals. We can get energy from the sun like plants do. We won't get sick, won't grow old the same way." Part of me was horrified. But another part, the part that had lived through watching everything die in the Dust Bowl, the part that had held Eleanor after each miscarriage, that part wondered if this was really so wrong. The Earth Eater showed me more. How it had survived the dinosaurs dying. How it had watched ice ages come and go. How all life on Earth was connected, and it was just trying to bring that connection closer. "Each family before us made the choice," Eleanor said. "They became part of it willingly. The soil takes their bodies, but their minds stay alive inside it. They become part of something bigger. She showed me a chamber where our missing livestock were half merged with the walls. Their bodies were being taken apart and rebuilt, their brains connected to the roots. It needs specific things from different animals, she explained. Cow eyes see better in the dark. Chicken hearts beat faster. I stumbled backward, overwhelmed. And what does it want from us? From humans? Eleanor smiled, and the Earth Eater answered in my mind. Your minds, your adaptability, your capacity for love. That last part caught me off guard. Love? It doesn't just want to survive, Eleanor said. It wants to understand, to feel what we feel. That's what makes us special to it. She took my hand and led me to what looked like an altar made of intertwined roots. On it lay an old book, the final journal of the last Hargrove to live here. There's a ritual, she said, a way to separate from it, if that's what you want. You can destroy this place, destroy our child, and leave. The Earth Eater won't stop you. I looked at the book, then at Eleanor. Her skin had a green tint now, and in the places where her nightgown didn't cover, I could see the root-like structures spreading under her skin. What happens if I stay? I asked. We become part of it, she said. Our bodies will change. Our minds will join with the others in the network, and our child will be the first of something new. As I stood there trying to decide, the ground above us shook. Dust sifted down from the ceiling of the cave. Another dust storm, Eleanor said. They're getting worse. Soon, nothing will grow out there at all. I thought about the dying farms all around us, the hungry people in town, the way the climate was changing, getting hotter and drier every year, and I thought about Eleanor, about how peaceful she looked now that she was part of this thing, how, for the first time since our last baby died, she seemed whole. If we join with it, I asked, can we help people? Can we make crops that will grow in the dust? Eleanor nodded slowly. We can. It knows how to make plants that need almost no water. That can grow in the worst soil. If that's what we want to use our new life for. I looked around one more time at the horror and the wonder of this place, at what had been human and what had never been human at all. And I made my choice. 5 years have passed since that night in the cave. The drought they predicted came, worse than anyone imagined. Farms all across Oklahoma dried up and blew away. People lost everything, just like in the old Dust Bowl days, but not here, not on our land. From the road, our farm looks normal now. The perfect circle has grown, spreading out about a mile in every direction. The grass is green, the crops tall. We built a sign at the entrance that says Hargrove Foundation, Agricultural Research. People come from all over to see what we're doing. Scientists, farmers, government folks, they all want to know how we grow corn with almost no water, how our wheat can survive in dust that would kill any other plant, how our seeds produce 3 harvests a year instead of 1. Eleanor greets them, wearing long sleeves and high collars even in summer heat. She smiles and talks about innovative farming techniques and sustainable agriculture. She looks almost the same as she did 5 years ago, except for her eyes. They're deeper somehow, like you could fall into them if you looked too long. I stay in the background mostly. The changes in me are harder to hide. My skin has a greenish tint in certain light. When I cut myself, the wound closes within minutes. I haven't been sick a single day since I made my choice. The visitors never stay after dark. They never see what happens in our fields at night when the earth moves and breathes. They don't know about the network of tunnels beneath their feet, spreading a little farther each month. They don't see Eleanor walking barefoot through the corn, her feet sinking into soil that parts for her like water, welcoming her home. And they never see our child. We named her Tara. She doesn't look human. Not really. She has no mouth because she doesn't need to eat the way we used to. Her skin is like tree bark in some places, soft as flower petals in others. When the sun is out, she stands in the fields with her arms spread wide, drinking in the light. At night, her body glows softly from within. She's 5 years old but has the mind of someone much older. Sometimes when she looks at me, I can feel the Earth Eater looking through her eyes. Not with malice, but with curiosity, with hope. The people who come for our drought-resistant seeds don't know they're taking home tiny pieces of the Earth Eater. Microscopic spores that will slowly change the soil wherever they're planted. Nothing dangerous, nothing that will hurt anyone. Just preparing the way. Because the Earth Eater showed us the future. The droughts will get worse, the heat will rise. The old ways of farming, of living, won't work anymore. Humanity needs to change or it will die. We're helping that change happen, one field at a time. Sometimes at night, I dream of the others who came before us. All the Hargroves who made the same choice we did. I can feel them in the soil, in the plants, in the very air of this place. Their consciousness lives on, spread throughout the network. Last week, a family showed up at our door, a young couple with a little boy. They looked tired and desperate, their own farm lost to the dust. They asked if we needed workers. Eleanor looked at them for a long time, then smiled and invited them in for dinner. The soil provides, she told them as they ate our food and drank our water. It takes care of those who take care of it. I watched the woman's eyes as she drank from our well, saw the same wonder there that I must have shown 5 years ago. Her son, too. He ran through our green fields with a joy his tired parents had probably thought he'd lost forever. They'll stay, I think. They'll learn our ways, and when they're ready, they'll be given the same choice we were. Before they arrived, I woke one morning to find a new room in our root cellar. The walls were lined with glass bottles containing perfect copies of all our seeds. Beside them was a handwritten journal with formulas and growing instructions. Everything someone would need to continue our work, even if Eleanor and I were gone. Tiki, Earth Eater, is patient. It thinks in centuries, not years. It knows that change can't be rushed, but it's happening already. The birds that eat our seeds are changing, growing smarter. The rabbits that nibble our plants at night are developing new digestive systems. The children who eat our corn and wheat are just a little healthier, a little more resistant to disease. Small changes, nearly invisible, but spreading. Sometimes I stand at the edge of our land and look out at the brown, dead fields beyond. I remember being that frightened, desperate man who inherited a strange farm 5 years ago. I think about the horror I felt when I first saw what lived beneath our soil. Then I look behind me at our green fields, at Eleanor teaching Tara about the plants, both of them with their bare feet in the living soil. And I know we made the right choice. The Earth Eater isn't a monster. It's the future, our future, the next step in a process that's been happening since life first squirmed out of the ancient seas. The drought will get worse before it gets better. More people will come, looking for answers, for help. We'll be ready for them. We'll offer them water from our well, food from our fields, a place in what's coming. Not everyone will choose to join us. Not everyone needs to. The change is happening, with or without them. I run my hand over the bark-like patch on my forearm, feeling the places where tiny leaves unfurl in the sunlight. Eleanor says eventually I won't need to eat normal food at all, that my body will make everything it needs from water and light. But I still enjoy the taste of Eleanor's cooking, the feel of sitting at a table like a normal family. Some human. Things are worth keeping, I think, even as we become something more. As the sun sets, I watch Tara running through the fields, her body glowing brighter as darkness falls. From above, she must look like a comet streaking through our green circle, a signal fire, a beacon, the first, but not the last. The Earth Eater is patient, and now, so are we. My name is Margaret Davenport. I'm 33 years old, and I'm running away from my husband. The old truck I bought with cash rattles over the dirt road, sending dust clouds behind me as I drive deeper into the mountains. My knuckles are white, on the steering wheel. Every few minutes I check the rearview mirror, half expecting to see Richard's sleek black car following me. But there's nothing but the empty road and tall pines. 3 days ago, I grabbed whatever I could fit in 2 suitcases and left while Richard was at work. The bruises on my arms are still yellow-green, but the cut on my lip has finally healed. This time was going to be different. This time, I wasn't coming back. The map on the passenger seat is worn, with a red circle around a spot labeled Hollow Creek. My grandmother left me this property when she died 10 years ago. I never visited. Richard always found a reason why we couldn't go. Now I understand why. The radio crackles as I drive deeper into the valley. The country music station dissolves into static, but there's something odd about the noise. It rises and falls in a pattern, almost like howling. I switch it off. As I round the final bend, the trees open up to reveal a small valley. My breath catches in my throat. The cabin sits in a clearing surrounded by ancient trees, looking exactly like the photo my grandmother kept on her mantle. A stream runs alongside the property, the water glinting in the afternoon sun. I park the truck and just sit for a moment, letting myself breathe. For the first time in years, I feel something close to peace. The cabin key is right where Grandma's letter said it would be, under a stone owl by the front step. The door creaks as I push it open, releasing the smell of dust and old wood. It's simple inside. 2 bedrooms, a living room with a stone fireplace, and a kitchen with an old gas stove. It feels like stepping back in time. That first night, I light a fire and curl up on the couch with a blanket I found in a cedar chest. The windows are dark mirrors reflecting the firelight. Outside, the wind moves through the trees, creating a soft, whispering sound. I try not to think about Richard, about the way his family has hunted in these mountains for generations, about how he always came back from those hunting trips different, wilder somehow, his eyes sharper, his temper worse. In the morning, I explore the property. Behind the cabin is a garden, overgrown but still showing neat rows where things once grew. A root cellar door, half hidden by weeds, catches my eye. The padlock is rusty but opens with a key I found hanging in the kitchen. Inside, shelves line the walls, holding dusty jars of preserved vegetables and fruits. In the corner, I find a wooden chest. Inside are packets of seeds, carefully labeled in faded handwriting: moonflower, bloodroot, wolf's bane. I recognize some of these plants from my botany studies, but others have strange names I've never heard before. At the bottom of the chest is a leather-bound book, my grandmother's journal. The first page has just one line, written in careful script: "Blood calls to blood when the moon swells." A chill runs down my spine despite the warm spring air. I close the journal and climb out of the cellar, blinking in the sunlight. I tell myself it's just an old saying, nothing to worry about. That afternoon, I drive to the nearest town for supplies. It's small, just a general store, a diner, and a handful of houses. The people are polite but distant. They look at me a little too long, their eyes curious and wary. As I load groceries into my truck, an old man approaches me. His face is weathered, his eyes pale blue under bushy white brows. "You're Evelyn's granddaughter," he says. It's not a question. "Yes," I reply. "I'm Margaret," he nods slowly. "Been a long time since anyone lived at Hollow Creek." He looks at the sky, then back at me. "Moon's waxing. You be careful up there." Before I can ask what he means, he walks away. I drive back to the cabin with an uneasy feeling in my stomach. The next morning, I find a box of supplies at the junction, where my dirt road meets the main road. There's no note, just a small carving of what looks like a protection symbol tucked inside. It's strange, but I'm grateful for the fresh bread and homemade jam. As I settle into life at the cabin, I start clearing the old garden. The soil is rich and black, unlike anything I've seen before. When I plant some of the heirloom seeds from the cellar, they sprout overnight, pushing green shoots up through the dark earth with unusual speed. At night, I read more of my grandmother's journal by firelight. Most of it is in code or uses terms I don't understand. She writes about voluntary, grafting, and ascension through blood sacrifice. I tell myself it's just the ramblings of an eccentric old woman, but something about the precise diagrams and careful notes suggests otherwise. One evening at twilight, as I'm watering the garden, I hear whistling from the edge of the woods. The melody is hauntingly familiar, the lullaby my grandmother used to sing to me as a child. I call out, but there's no answer, just the wind in the trees and the distant sound of water over rocks. I go back inside and lock the door. That night, I dream of roots growing under my skin, stretching and branching through my veins. I wake gasping, my heart pounding in my chest. The next day, I find strange markings carved into the trees at the edge of my property. They look almost like the symbol that came with the supplies, but more complex. Something about them makes my skin crawl, but I also feel strangely drawn to trace my fingers over the rough cuts in the bark. It's when I'm examining these marks that I notice something odd about one of the trees. There's a seam in the trunk, almost invisible unless you're looking right at it. When I press against it, a section of bark swings inward, revealing a narrow path I hadn't seen before. I hesitate only a moment before following it. The path winds through trees that seem older and stranger than those around my cabin. Their bark is darker, almost red in places, and their branches twist in unnatural shapes. The path leads to a small clearing. In the center stands a flat stone that comes up to my waist. Its surface is smooth except for carvings similar to those on the trees. Around the clearing, I notice animal bones arranged in patterns, too deliberate to be random. The sunlight seems dimmer here, though it's the middle of the day. A sound makes me turn, something moving in the underbrush. A deer steps into the clearing, but there's something wrong with it. Its antlers are asymmetrical, growing in spirals rather than branching. Its eyes, when it looks at me, seem too aware. It watches me for a long moment, then turns and bounds away through the trees. I hurry back to the cabin, unable to shake the feeling that I've crossed some invisible boundary. That night, I hear howling in the distance. Not wolves. The sound is too complex, almost like words I can almost understand. I pull the blankets over my head like a child, but I can still hear it, calling to something deep inside me. I know I should leave, pack up my truck and drive away from this strange place. But something holds me here. The same something that made me choose this place when I fled from Richard. It feels like I've been circling back to Hollow Creek my entire life. And now that I'm here, I can't leave until I understand why. Tomorrow, I'll go back to the root cellar. There are more journals there, more secrets to uncover. And with each day that passes, I feel less afraid and more curious. As if I'm finally waking up from a long sleep. As I drift off, I think I hear that whistling again. Closer now. The lullaby my grandmother sang about the moon and the woods and the blood that binds us all together. The next morning, I wake up early, my mind still swirling with thoughts of the strange path and the deer with twisted antlers. My botanical training tells me that what I saw isn't normal. Nature doesn't usually work that way. I make myself a cup of strong coffee and head back to the root cellar. This time, I bring a flashlight to better see into the dark corners. The air down here smells like earth and something else. Something metallic that reminds me of blood. I find 3 more journals hidden behind a loose brick in the wall. They're older than the first one, the pages yellow and brittle. My grandmother's handwriting fills these too, but the earliest dates go back to the 1700s. That can't be right. These must be copies of even older family records. I carefully open the oldest journal and start reading. The language is old-fashioned but clear enough. It talks about a selective breeding program, started by my ancestors. At first, I think it's about the plants, which would make sense for a family of botanists, but as I read on, my hands start to shake. The Davenport bloodline must be kept pure, yet strengthened with each generation. Only those with the markers should be allowed to bear children. The journal talks about choosing specific husbands and wives based on physical traits: unusual canine teeth, strong sense of smell, good night vision. My family had been selecting for these traits for hundreds of years, like they were breeding dogs or something else. I close the journal and sit on the dirt floor, trying to make sense of what I'm reading. I remember Richard's family, how they all had those sharp canine teeth, how they could smell a deer from a mile away, how Richard always seemed to know when I was afraid, like he could smell it on me. A memory surfaces, Richard's father showing me a family heirloom at our wedding, a silver pendant with strange markings, the same markings I found on the trees around my property. I climb out of the cellar, needing fresh air. In the daylight, my garden catches my eye. The seeds I planted just days ago have already grown into small plants, way too fast for normal growth. I kneel down to examine them better. The tomato plants have grown to 6 inches overnight, but there's something off about their structure. The way the stems branch reminds me of nerve clusters in the human body. I've never seen plants grow like this. I need to take a closer look. In the shed, I find my grandmother's old microscope. It's outdated but functional. I take samples from several plants back to the kitchen table. Under the microscope, what I see makes no scientific sense. The plant cells are dividing at an impossible rate, and their structure is all wrong, more like animal cells than plant cells in some ways. It's like they're evolving before my eyes. My hands are steady as I write down my observations in a notebook. The scientist in me is fascinated, though I should be terrified. Something tells me this isn't just strange biology. It's connected to those journals, to my family's history. In the afternoon, I walk to the small barn behind the house. Inside, I find an old cow, healthy despite her age. I have no idea who's been taking care of her all this time. Her tag says Bessie. "Hello, Bessie," I say softly, and she turns to look at me with knowing eyes. I find milking equipment and decide to try my hand at it. My grandmother taught me how when I was little, and the motions come back easily. The milk that flows into the bucket has a strange blue tint to it. I've never seen anything like it before. Later, out of curiosity, I boil some of the milk and take a small sip. A wave of intense pleasure washes over me, stronger than any feeling I've ever had. For a few minutes, I feel invincible, connected to everything around me. Then it fades, leaving me craving more. I pour the rest of the milk down the drain. Whatever it is, it's not natural. That night, I read more of the journals. My grandmother writes about the hiding places and the secret rooms where the change happens. She mentions a room beneath the root cellar that I haven't found yet. The next day, I go back to the cellar with a hammer. I knock on the walls, listening for hollow spaces. Near the back, behind the oldest shelves, the sound changes. I push the shelf aside and find a small door, barely big enough to crawl through. I hesitate. Every horror movie I've ever seen tells me not to go through that door, but my need to understand is stronger than my fear. I crawl through with my flashlight. The space opens into a larger room with a dirt floor and stone walls. My light sweeps across the room, revealing chains bolted to the wall. Some are clearly meant for human wrists. Others are larger, stronger, meant for something else. In the corner, I find a box filled with hair, some human, some coarse and animal-like. There's a table with leather straps, stained dark. I don't want to think about what those stains might be. The walls are covered with more symbols, drawn in something that looks like dried blood. In the center of the room stands a stone altar similar to the one I found in the woods. My hands shake as I back out of the room. Whatever happened down there, it wasn't good. I seal the door shut with a new padlock I bought in town and try to forget what I saw. That night, I can't sleep. The wind howls outside, and with each gust I swear I can hear voices calling my name. Around midnight, I give up and go to the window. The full moon hangs low and heavy in the sky, casting silver light across the yard. In that light, I see movement in my garden. At first, I think it's animals, rabbits maybe, or deer. But when I look closer, I realize it's the plants themselves. They're moving, not just swaying in the wind, but actually moving. The tomato vines are twisting, reaching toward the moon. As I watch, one of the tomatoes splits open, revealing what looks like tiny teeth inside the fruit. I press my hand against the glass, not believing what I'm seeing. The plants in my garden are transforming under the moonlight, becoming something that's not quite plant anymore. Something in between plant and animal. I should be terrified, but instead, I feel a strange calm. Like I'm watching something natural, something right. Like I'm finally seeing the world as it really is. The next morning, I check the garden in daylight. The plants look normal again, though they've grown even more overnight. I touch a tomato cautiously, half expecting it to bite me. It feels like a regular tomato, but when I cut it open to make breakfast, inside I find structures that look like tiny nerve endings, pulsing slightly before they go still. I set the knife down and step back from the counter. What is happening here? I go back to the journals, searching for answers. In one of the middle journals, I find a reference to the ascension through blood sacrifice again. There are diagrams of the human body, showing changes to the skeleton and muscle structure, notes about the transformation, and how it can only happen when both bloodlines merge. And then I find a medical record, my medical record, from before I was born. Notes about genetic modifications made to the embryo that would become me. My grandmother had somehow altered my DNA before I was even born. The last page of that journal contains a family tree. My mother's name is there, and above it, my grandmother's. But my father's name is unfamiliar, and next to it is another name I do know, Richard's grandfather. My husband and I are related, distantly, but the connection is there. Blood calls to blood, I whisper, remembering the note from the people in town. I sit back, trying to process what this means. My grandmother engineered my birth. She manipulated my genes. And somehow, it's all connected to Richard's family. As the sun sets, I walk out to the edge of the property where I found the strange markings on the trees. In the fading light, I notice something I missed before. The ground around the trees is littered with bones. Small animal bones arranged in patterns that match the symbols carved into the wood. But there's something else. The bones themselves aren't normal. They're twisted, fused in places they shouldn't be. Like the animals they came from were changing into something else when they died. I kneel down to examine one. What looks like a rabbit skull, but with teeth too sharp and numerous for any rabbit I've ever studied. As I pick it up, pain shoots through my hand. One of the teeth has pricked my finger, drawing blood. A drop falls onto the ground, and for a second, just a second, I swear the earth moves, like it's drinking my blood. The sun has set completely now, and the woods are dark, but I can still see clearly, much more clearly than I should be able to. It's like my eyes have adjusted instantly to the darkness. From deep in the forest comes the sound of whistling, that same lullaby. And this time, I know I'm not imagining it. Someone is out there, watching me. And somehow, they're connected to all of this. The plants, the journals, the strange changes happening around me. And the strangest thing? I'm not afraid anymore. I feel like I'm finally where I belong. As I walk back to the cabin, I catch my reflection in the window. For just a moment, my eyes look different. The pupils elongated, almost like a cat's. I blink, and they're normal again. But I know what I saw, and I know that whatever is happening to this place is happening to me too. 2 weeks have passed since I found my grandmother's journals. The full moon is coming again tonight. I've marked it on my calendar, watching as it grows bigger each night. Something tells me it's important. This morning, I woke up different. My skin feels tight, like it doesn't quite fit anymore. When I brush my teeth, I notice my canines look sharper. I touch one with my finger and draw blood. My own tooth cut me. I've been reading more journals. They talk about a lunar eclipse when the first partial transformation happens. There's one tonight. I checked online before my internet stopped working 3 days ago. It's like the mountains themselves are cutting me off from the outside world. I walk around the property, feeling restless. The garden has grown wild now. The vegetables look wrong. Tomatoes with strange bumps that pulse like heartbeats. Carrots that twist like fingers reaching from the ground. I haven't eaten any of them. I stick to the canned food I bought in town, though even that tastes bland now. What I really crave is meat, rare and bloody. Near the edge of the woods, I find something I missed before. What I thought were oddly shaped rocks are actually bones, big ones, arranged in a circle. When I stand in the center, I feel a buzzing in my teeth, a pressure in my head. It's like the bones are antennas, picking up signals I can't quite hear. I kneel down and press my hands against the ground. The earth feels alive under my fingers, pulsing with energy that grows stronger as the day goes on. Something is building, gathering strength for tonight. Back at the cabin, I find my grandmother's final journal, the one she was writing just before she died. Her handwriting gets shakier toward the end, but her words are clear. Margaret will return when the time is right. The blood calls to blood. She carries both lines within her, the host and the catalyst. My work of 5 generations is nearly complete. She knew I would come here. She planned it all along. I find more, records of women in my family, all with stories like mine. Women who fled from bad marriages, who came home to Hollow Creek, women who changed, and I find recordings, old cassette tapes in a box under the floorboards. I find a player in a closet and listen to my grandmother's voice. She talks about a 5-generation plan that started with her great-grandmother. A plan that would culminate in Margaret's birth and return. On the last tape, her voice sounds older, weaker. Margaret, if you're listening to this, it's already begun. The changes, you can feel them, can't you? Your senses getting sharper, your body wanting to reshape itself. Don't fight it. You were made for this. I switch off the tape, my hands shaking. What was I made for? What am I becoming? As the sun sets, I feel fever coming on. My skin burns, my joints ache. I stumble to the bathroom and splash cold water on my face. When I look in, the mirror. I barely recognize myself. My eyes have changed color, shifting from brown to amber. My face looks different, sharper somehow, the bones more pronounced. I hear a truck in the distance and freeze. I know that engine sound. Richard, how did he find me? It's been nearly a month. I thought I was safe. I grab my grandmother's shotgun from under the bed and go to the window. Through the trees, I can see headlights approaching on the dirt road, but they stop at the property line, right at the tree line where the strange bone circle starts. A car door slams. A flashlight beam cuts through the growing darkness. Richard's voice calls out, "Margaret, I know you're here." But he doesn't cross the boundary. It's like he can't. The protection symbols are working, keeping him out. For now. I watch as he paces at the edge of the property, his movements agitated, angry. He was always angry, but this is different. He looks wild, almost desperate. "Your grandmother can't protect you anymore," he shouts into the darkness. "You have to complete the ritual, Margaret. It's what we were made for." What ritual? How does he know about any of this? As night falls completely, the eclipse begins. I can feel it happening even before I look outside. A pressure change in the air, a shifting of energies. I go to the porch and look up at the sky. The moon is already partially covered, a dark shadow eating away at its light. That's when the pain starts. Real pain, not just discomfort. My bones feel like they're breaking and remaking themselves. I fall to my knees on the porch, gasping. Through tear-filled eyes, I see Richard at the edge of the property. He's on his knees, too, his body shaking. Even from this distance, I can hear his screams echoing my own. Something is happening to both of us. My senses explode into sharpness. Suddenly, I can smell everything. The rich earth, the rotting leaves, Richard's sweat and fear 100 yards away. I can hear a mouse heart beating under the porch boards, the wings of an owl passing overhead. I see the world in perfect detail despite the darkness. Colors I don't have names for. Patterns I never noticed before. The pain eases as quickly as it came. I stand up, feeling stronger than I've ever felt. Across the clearing, Richard is standing too. Our eyes meet, and I know he can see me as clearly as I see him. "Margaret," he calls, his voice different now, deeper with a rumble that wasn't there before. "Let me in, it's time." "Time for what?" I call back. "The joining. The thing our families have been working toward for centuries." He takes a step forward but stops again at the boundary. "You're feeling it too. The change. It's just the beginning." I back inside and lock the door, though I know it wouldn't stop him if he got past the boundary. I curl up on the couch, wrapping my arms around myself as my body continues to change in small ways. My nails growing thicker, stronger, my hearing becoming so acute I can hear Richard's heartbeat outside. The night passes slowly. I drift in, and out of sleep having vivid dreams. No, memories that aren't my own. Women in old-fashioned dresses running through these same woods. Men with amber eyes chasing them, blood on stones, rituals in the moonlight. I see my grandmother as a young woman mixing chemicals in a lab, injecting something into her pregnant belly, modifying the baby inside her. My mother. I see my mother doing the same when she was pregnant with me. I wake fully as dawn breaks. The eclipse is over. My body feels almost normal again, except everything is sharper, clearer. I go to the window. Richard is gone, but I know he hasn't gone far. He'll be back when the moon is full. I need to understand more before that happens. I go back to the journals, reading them with new eyes. Words that didn't make sense before are clear now. The dogmen are not our enemies, but our other halves, one journal says. Our ancestors split from them 10,000 years ago. But the separation was never meant to be permanent. Through careful breeding, we've preserved the bloodlines that can be rejoined. Dogmen. The word should sound ridiculous, but it doesn't. Not with what I experienced last night. Not with the changes I can feel happening in my body. I think of Richard's family, their sharp teeth, their uncanny sense of smell, how they always went hunting during the full moon, how Richard would come back different, wilder. I thought he was just letting his true abusive nature show. Now I realize it was something else, his other nature showing through. In the afternoon, I get a visitor. An old man from town, the same one who spoke to me that first day. He comes to the edge of the property, but doesn't cross the boundary. "Richard's in town," he says without greeting. "He's gathering men. They're coming tonight." "Why are you telling me this?" I ask. He's quiet for a moment. "My grandmother was a Davenport before she married. I'm not part of this, but I know what happens here. What's been happening for generations." "Tell me," I say. He shakes his head. "You already know. You can feel it." He looks at me carefully. "You're changing already. I can see it in your eyes." What am I becoming? Something old. Something that was here before people built towns and forgot the old ways. He starts to turn away, then stops. "You should know. You're not the prey here, Margaret. You're the trap. Your grandmother set it all in motion before you were even born." "What do you mean?" But he just walks away, leaving me with more questions. I spend the rest of the day preparing. I don't know what's coming, but I know it will happen tonight when the moon is full. I find a box of my grandmother's clothes in the attic, loose dresses that will allow for movement, for changes in my body. As evening approaches, I feel the fever returning. My reflection shows my face subtly changing, my nose and jaw reshaping, my ears slightly pointed now. When I open my mouth, my canine teeth are definitely longer, and I remember things I shouldn't know: how to move silently through the woods, how to track by scent, how to kill with my bare hands. Memories that aren't mine, but are somehow stored in my changing DNA. I remember Richard, too, differently now. I see the signs I missed before. His abusive behavior started after we were married, after his family accepted me. It was like a switch flipped in him. Now I understand. He was changing too, fighting it, maybe, hating what he was becoming. As the sun sets, I smell them coming before I hear them. Richard and 5 other men moving through the woods toward my property. They smell of sweat and gun oil and something wild underneath. The same wild smell that's coming from my own skin now. I stand on the porch and wait. The full moon rises above the trees, huge and bright. Its light seems to soak into my skin, accelerating the changes. My hands shake, the fingers lengthening slightly, the nails thickening into something like claws. Richard steps into the clearing, and this time he crosses the boundary. The protection symbols don't work on him anymore, or maybe they were never meant to keep him out permanently, just until the right time. "Margaret," he says, his voice rough and deep. "It's time to finish what our family started." The other men hang back, watching. Their eyes gleam in the darkness, reflecting the moonlight like animals. "What am I?" I ask, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. "The same as me," Richard says. "The same as all of us, just more so. Your grandmother made sure of that." He takes another step toward me. I can see his face clearly in the moonlight. His features are changing too, becoming more angular, less human. "We're the future, Margaret. What humans could become if they embraced their true nature." He holds out his hand. "Come with me. Complete the ritual. It's what we were born for." I look at his outstretched hand, at the men waiting at the edge of the clearing. I think of the ritual chamber beneath the root cellar, the chains on the walls, the altar stained with old blood. And I know, with sudden clarity, that I have a choice to make. Richard's way, violence and domination, or something new, something inside me howls, wanting to be set free. And for the first time in my life, I decide to listen to it. I take a step back, away from Richard's outstretched hand. The moonlight feels like it's soaking into my skin, making the changes happen faster. My whole body tingles with energy. "Tell me the truth," I say. "All of it. What are we?" Richard lowers his hand. In the silver light, I can see him changing more. His face longer, ears pointed, teeth showing when he speaks. "We're what humans used to be, before they forgot, before they got soft." His voice has a growl underneath the words now. "Some call us dogmen. Others have different names. We're hunters, Margaret, born to run in the night." And my family? The Davenports. They were always the smart ones, scientists. They studied us, bred with us sometimes, kept records. He gestures at the cabin. "Your grandmother was the cleverest of them all. She had a plan spanning generations. To make me," I say, understanding flooding in, "to create someone who could be both, scientist and hunter." Richard nods. "The perfect bridge between our families, someone who could lead us into the future." He takes a step closer. "Your grandmother arranged our marriage, you know, pushed my family to choose you for me." I think back to how we met, at a scientific conference where I was presenting my research on plant genetics. How Richard's father approached me first, introduced me to his son, How fast everything happened after that. The abuse, I say quietly. Was that part of the plan too? A flash of shame crosses Richard's face. I was fighting the change. It made me angry, out of control. I hated what I was becoming. He looks at me with those strange amber eyes. But you were changing too, Margaret. You just didn't know it. Your emotions, your fear, they triggered my instincts. I couldn't stop myself. One of the men at the edge of the clearing steps forward. Enough talk, he says. The moon won't wait. We need to complete the ritual before dawn. Richard turns to him. We do this my way, Father. Richard's father. I look at him closely now and see the family resemblance, even through the partial transformation. The same sharp cheekbones. The same predatory stance. Your grandmother left instructions, Richard's father says to me. In the chamber beneath the cellar, the final ritual requires blood sacrifice. He looks at his son. The catalyst's blood. Richard's blood. Richard's eyes widen. You never told me that part. It was necessary, his father says coldly. One life to transform many. Your sacrifice will let us all ascend. I remember my grandmother's last journal entry. Margaret was always the one who would decide. The power will be hers if she chooses to take it. The choice is becoming clearer. Richard's father wants to sacrifice his own son to complete some ritual he thinks will transform him and the others fully. A ritual my grandmother designed, but I don't think that's what she actually wanted. No one is being sacrificed tonight, I say, my voice stronger than I expected. That's not how this is going to work. Richard's father snarls, his face contorting into something more wolf than human. You don't give the orders here, girl. But something strange is happening. As my own transformation continues, I feel power growing in me. Not just physical strength, but something else. A kind of authority. The other men shift uncomfortably, looking between me and Richard's father as if unsure who to follow. I think, she does, Father, Richard says quietly. He moves to stand beside me. Look at her eyes. I can't see my own eyes, but I can feel the change in them. A burning sensation, like they're glowing from within. The men can see it too. One by one, they lower their gazes, all except Richard's father. The ritual must be completed as written, he insists. Let's see these instructions then, I say. I lead them to the root cellar, unlock the hidden door, and we descend into the ritual chamber. Someone lights the old oil lamps on the walls, casting flickering light across the stone altar and the symbols drawn in blood. Richard's father rushes to a small alcove in the wall and pulls out a leather-bound book I hadn't found before. He opens it and points triumphantly to a page covered in my grandmother's handwriting and diagrams of the human body in various stages of transformation. See? The blood of the catalyst must be spilled upon the stone, he reads. Only then will the final transformation be complete. I take the book from him and read further. But it is the host who decides how much blood is required, for blood freely given carries more power than blood taken by force. I look up at Richard, whose face is now somewhere between human and wolf. I can feel my own face changing in the same way. She knew, I say. She knew I wouldn't want to kill you. She was testing me. Richard's father lunges for the book. You're reading it wrong. But Richard catches his arm. No, Father. I think she's right. He looks at me. What do we do now? I turn the page and find a detailed description of an alternative ritual. Not a sacrifice, but a joining. A small amount of blood from both of us mixed together on the stone. As I read it aloud, I realize this is what my grandmother truly intended. Not death, but transformation. Through choice, through consent. She was trying to break the cycle, I say. All those generations of breeding and planning, it wasn't to create killers, it was to create choice. Richard's father backs away, shaking his head. No, this isn't how it's supposed to be. The old ways led to this, I cut in, gesturing at the chains on the walls. Violence, control, fear. I turn to the other men. Is that what you want to pass on? Or something better? They look uncertain. Generations of tradition and hierarchy don't change in a moment, but I can see doubt in their eyes. Richard takes my hand. His skin is hot, fever hot like mine. I choose the new way, he says. His father roars in anger, his transformation accelerating with his rage. He lunges at us, claws extended, teeth bared, but Richard meets him halfway, catching him and throwing him against the wall. The sound of bones cracking fills the small space. No more violence, Richard growls. Not even against you, father. The older man slumps to the ground, breathing hard, defeated not by force but by his son's restraint. I step forward with the book. We do this properly, by choice. The ritual is simple. A cut on each of our palms. Our blood mixing on the stone altar. Words spoken in an old language that somehow I know, though I've never heard it before. As our blood touches the stone, something shifts in the air. A pressure change, like before a storm. Energy crackles between us, visible as tiny blue sparks. The transformation that's been happening slowly all night suddenly accelerates. My bones crack and reform. My spine lengthens. My face reshapes. But there's no pain now, only a sense of rightness, of becoming what I was always meant to be. Richard changes too, his body mirroring mine. The other men watch in awe as we complete a transformation they've only experienced partially. When it's done, I stand taller, stronger. My senses are incredibly sharp. I can hear heartbeats, smell emotions. I look at my hands, still hands, but with claws that can extend or retract at will. My body is still recognizably mine, just enhanced, improved. I catch my reflection in a polished metal plate on the wall. My face is longer, wolfish, but still human enough. My eyes glow amber in the dim light. I can shift back to looking more human, I realize, controlling the change with a thought. Richard stands beside me, similarly transformed. But there's a difference between us. I can feel it in the air, in the way the others, including his father, now look at me with deference. You're the alpha, Richard says quietly, just like your grandmother was before you. I remember the old man's words. You're not the prey. You're the trap. He was right, but not in the way I feared. I wasn't a trap to catch Richard for slaughter. I was the trap my grandmother set to catch the future, to create a new kind of leader who would change everything. What now? One of the other men asks. I look at each of them. Now we decide what kind of pack we want to be. Richard's father struggles to his feet. The pack follows strength. You've won that right. There's reluctant respect in his voice now. What would you have us do? I think of the underground chamber, the chains, the history of violence, and I think of my grandmother's journals, her careful planning across generations. We start over, I say. We build something new. As we climb, out of the chamber back into the night air, the moon is setting. Dawn isn't far off. My first night is something more than human, less than monster. Something in between. Richard follows me outside. I'm sorry, he says simply, for everything before. That was a different life, I tell him. We're something new now. His father and the others hang back, waiting for instructions. I can sense their uncertainty, their fear of change, but also their hope. They've been trapped in old patterns for generations. Maybe they're ready for something different, too. I look up at the fading stars. First, we need to find the others. What others? Richard asks. My aunts, my cousins, the women your family has taken over the years. The ones who never completed. The transformation. I remember my grandmother's journals mentioning an underground den. Women kept in a half-changed state. They're still alive, aren't they? Richard's father looks away, unable to meet my gaze. That's answer enough. We free them first, I say. Then we decide the rest. As the sky lightens with dawn, I feel the transformation easing, my body shifting, back toward human appearance. But I know the change is permanent now. I'll never be just Margaret Davenport botanist again. I am something older, something new, something with power to change what has been wrong for generations. And as the first ray of sunlight touches the trees, I make a promise to myself and to the women I haven't yet found. Things will be different now. This pack will be built on choice, not coercion, on protection, not predation. The old ways end with me. The next morning, Richard leads us to a system of caves deeper in the mountains. The entrance is hidden behind a waterfall, invisible unless you know exactly where to look. The air inside is damp and smells of moss and something else, something living. They're kept down here, Richard says quietly. I've only been allowed to visit twice. The men don't talk about it. His father walks behind us, sullen but cooperative. The other men follow, their loyalty shifting with the night's events. I can sense their uncertainty, their fear of change warring with a strange new hope. As we go deeper into the caves, I hear sounds echoing off the stone walls. Soft whimpers, whispers, the shuffling of bodies. We round a corner, and I stop in shock. The cave opens into a large chamber lit by strange glowing fungi on the walls. Inside are women, at least a dozen of them, in various stages of transformation. Some look almost normal except for their eyes or teeth. Others are more changed, their bodies caught between human and something else. They shrink back as we enter, huddling together in fear. I realize they see us as threats, me included, despite being a woman. My partial transformation makes me look like one of their captors. It's okay, I say, trying to sound gentle despite my changed voice. We're here to help you. One woman steps forward, braver than the rest. She's older, maybe in her 60s, her silver hair hanging in tangles around a face that's more wolf-eyed than human. Something about her eyes strikes me as familiar. Margaret, she says, her voice rough from disuse. Evelyn's granddaughter? I stare at her. How do you know me? I'm your aunt, she says. Your mother's sister, Jennifer. An aunt I never knew existed. My mother never mentioned having a sister. She thought I was dead, Jennifer explains, seeing my confusion. They took me when I was 16. Brought me here. She looks at Richard's father with hatred. They keep us just changed enough to be docile, but not enough to gain power. Feed us drugs to keep us compliant. I turn to Richard's father. You've been kidnapping women for generations. He doesn't even look ashamed. It's our way. We need the Davenport bloodline. Well, it ends now, I say firmly. I turn back to the women. You're free to leave, all of you. Jennifer shakes her head. We can't just walk out. Look at us. Where would we go? What would we do? She's right. Most of them are too changed to return to normal society. And the transformation, once started, can't be completely reversed. I know that instinctively now. You'll come with me, I decide. To Hollow Creek. We have land, isolation. We can create a sanctuary. One by one, the women come forward. Some can walk on their own. Others need help. Many are related to me somehow. Distant cousins, aunts, great-aunts. All Davenports who were taken over decades. The oldest has been here for almost 50 years. As we help them out of the caves into the sunlight, I see tears in many of their eyes. Some haven't seen the sun in years. Richard helps a young woman who can barely walk. My father took her 3 years ago, he says, quietly to me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they were still doing this. I believe him. The shame in his eyes is real. Whatever he was before, abuser, hunter, he's changing now, just as I am. Back at Hollow Creek, we settle the women into the cabin and barn. There's not enough room for everyone, so some of the men volunteer to build simple shelters. It's strange to see them working alongside women they'd kept prisoner just hours before. But the pack hierarchy has shifted. I'm alpha now, and they follow my lead. That night, as the rescued women sleep, I sit on the porch with Richard and Jennifer, planning for the future. Will they stay changed? I ask, looking at my aunt whose face still holds more wolf than human. Some will gradually become more human again, Jennifer explains. Others won't. The longer you're kept in the half-state, the more permanent it becomes. And you? She shrugs. I've been this way for 30 years. This is who I am now. I nod, accepting her answer. We'll need supplies, medical equipment, clothes. I have money, Richard offers. Family money. It's as much yours now as mine. I look at him, surprised. You'd use it for this? For making amends? Yes. He stares out at the dark woods. I want to be better than what I was made to be. Over the following weeks, we build our strange community. More women arrive, some rescued from other dens run by different branches of Richard's family, others coming on their own, drawn by some instinct or rumor spreading through the mountains. I find more of my grandmother's journals and recordings. She had foreseen this, or planned it. Her notes detail how to help the partially transformed, how to ease their pain, how to help them find balance between their human and animal natures. You were right, Richard tells me one evening as we watch the sunset from the porch. Your grandmother wasn't creating monsters. She was trying to heal a broken lineage. I think of her 5-generation plan, culminating in my birth and return. She engineered me not to be a weapon or a breeder, but a bridge. Someone who could understand both sides, the scientific and the primal. With each passing day, I learn more about what I am, what we all are. The transformation isn't just physical. It comes with abilities, heightened senses, faster healing, longer life. And with practice, I can shift between my human appearance and my other form at will. The others learn this too, though not all can do it as completely as I can. 3 months after that first full moon, our community has grown to nearly 30 people, mostly women, but some men too. We've built cabins throughout the valley, planted new gardens with normal vegetables this time, established routines and rules. The most important rule: no one is forced to stay, and no one is forced to change. Choice is sacred here. Richard's father and a few of the older men left after the first month, unwilling to accept the new way. I let them go, but made them swear to leave women alone. They knew I would hunt them down if they broke that promise. On the night of the full moon, we gather in the clearing, not for rituals or sacrifices, but for running together under the stars, for letting our other nature out in safety, without shame, for teaching the newly transformed how to control their shifting. We watch from the porch as the others play and hunt in the woods, catching rabbits and deer, but never humans. Never again. Richard comes to stand beside me. We haven't spoken much about what we were to each other before. That seems like another lifetime now. Are you happy here? He asks simply. I consider the question. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Answer. Doing what I was made to do. Is that happiness? I think it might be. He nods, understanding. And you? I ask. I'm trying to make amends, he says. It will take a lifetime. We have longer than most, I remind him. Another gift of the transformation. Decades more than a normal human lifespan. In the morning, a truck arrives with supplies. The driver is from town, one of the few locals who knows about us. He doesn't come past the gate, just leaves the boxes at the roadside. But this time, there's a letter with the delivery. It's from a university researcher who's heard rumors about unusual evolutionary patterns in our valley. She wants permission to visit, to study the unique ecosystem. I think about it for a long time. The scientist in me understands her curiosity. The protector in me fears exposure. But perhaps this too is part of my grandmother's plan, not just creating a sanctuary, but eventually understanding between our kind and the wider world. I write back, inviting her to visit, but only on my terms. We have much to teach about evolution, adaptation, and survival, but we also have secrets to protect. 5 years pass quickly. Our community grows and changes. Some leave to establish similar sanctuaries in other remote areas. Others come seeking refuge. Word spreads quietly among those who need us. The university researcher visits regularly now. I've allowed her to document our work with plants and animals, but not our true nature. Not yet. She thinks I'm just an eccentric biologist who's established a nature preserve for studying unusual evolutionary patterns. She's not entirely wrong. On the 10th anniversary of that first full moon, I stand at the edge of the property and look out over what we've built. Cabins nestled among trees. Gardens flourishing with normal and slightly unusual plants. Children, some born here, others brought by rescued mothers, playing without fear. Richard stands at the boundary opposite me, watching over a group of newly arrived women learning to control their transformations. He catches my eye and nods respectfully. We're not what most would call a couple, but we're partners in this venture, bound by something deeper than romance. I reach down and touch the earth, feeling the energy that flows through this place. My grandmother chose this valley for a reason. The soil itself is special, rich with compounds that accelerate genetic changes that make evolution happen faster here than anywhere else. A perfect place for something new to be born. As night falls and the moon rises, I shift forms easily, my body changing in seconds from mostly human to the powerful hybrid I now accept as my true self. Around me, others do the same. We run together through the darkness, a family made by choice rather than blood. In the distance, I hear an echo of that old lullaby my grandmother used to sing. Maybe it's just the wind in the trees, or maybe it's her ghost watching over what she helped create. Either way, I'm grateful. She made me for this purpose, to heal the broken, to protect the vulnerable, to build something new from something very old. In the end, Bloodwood Hollow isn't just a place. It's the beginning of a story that will continue long after I'm gone. A story about monsters who chose not to be monsters. About humans who embraced their wildness without losing their humanity. About transformation that comes not from violence, but from choice. The wind carries my howl across the valley. Not a sound of hunger or rage, but of belonging. Of home, and deep in the woods, others answer. My name is Ethan Patterson. I'm 35 years old, and I never thought I'd end up living in my grandfather's old hunting cabin in the Olympic Mountains with my younger brother Lucas. But here we are, all because of a strange line in Grandpa's will. To claim your inheritance, the lawyer read to us 3 months ago, Ethan and Lucas must live together in the cabin for 1 full year. I remember looking at Lucas and seeing the same confusion on his face that I felt. We hadn't been close since we were kids. I joined the Army. He went into environmental research. Different lives, different worlds. The cabin sits in a weird valley that doesn't show up on any official maps. I checked before we came. It's like this place doesn't exist. The only map that shows it is Grandpa's hand-drawn one he left with his things. He called this place the Listening Post on his map, which gave me the creeps right from the start. Lucas was excited, though. He has a strange connection to these mountains. When he was about 9, he disappeared here for 3 whole days. Search, parties, helicopters, dogs. Nobody could find him. Then, on the 3rd day, he just walked back to camp like nothing happened. But he was different after that. His hearing got weirdly good, like he could hear a twig snap from 100 yards away. And he started sleepwalking, something he never did before. "This place feels right," Lucas said on our first night here. "Like I've been meant to come back." We spent the first week fixing up the cabin. It needed a new roof and the generator was shot, but once we got settled, we started exploring the property. That's when things got strange. 2 miles from the cabin, hidden behind a rock formation that looks like it's been arranged by hand, we found what looked like an old military building. The door was rusted shut, but Lucas found another way in through a vent shaft. Inside were filing cabinets filled with moldy papers, classified documents with most words blacked out. The words Project Resonance appeared on nearly every page. Back at the cabin, we found Grandpa's journals hidden under a loose floorboard. The journals were a mess. Military codes mixed with symbols that Lucas recognized as Klallam, from the native tribe in this region. Grandpa had written about those who shape the in-between, whatever that means. The weirdest thing about this place is how sound works here. Sometimes I can hear Lucas whispering from the other side of the property, clear as day. Other times, I can't hear him shouting from 20 feet away. It's like the air itself is playing tricks. "Grandpa didn't bring us here to give us land," Lucas said yesterday, looking through more of the journals. "He brought us here to listen." "Listen to what?" I asked. Lucas looked up at me with this strange, faraway look in his eyes. "To the frequency," he said. "The one that's been calling me since I was a kid." I thought he was joking, but last night I woke up to him standing at the window, his hand pressed against the glass. He was mumbling something over and over. When I got closer, I could make out the words, "They're coming. They've always been coming." I don't know what's happening in these mountains, but I have a feeling our grandfather's inheritance comes with a price I'm not sure we're ready to pay. The hunting is too good here. That's the first thing that started to bother me. It's been 2 months in the cabin now, and every time we go out hunting, the animals practically walk right up to us. Yesterday, a 10-point buck just stood there, staring at me, not moving even. When I raised my rifle, it was like it wanted me to take the shot. "This isn't normal," I told Lucas over dinner. We had more venison than we could eat, and I was thinking about building a bigger smokehouse. Lucas nodded, chewing slowly. "Nothing's normal here. Come with me tomorrow. I want to show you something." The next morning, he took me to a clearing I hadn't seen before. The trees around it were broken. Not like a storm had hit them, but like someone had snapped them in. Perfect lines. They formed these huge bowl shapes, all pointing at the same spot on a far mountain. "They're like satellite dishes," Lucas said, running his hand along one broken trunk. "Someone made them to catch sounds." "Trees don't just break like this," I said. "They do here." We kept exploring the property over the next few weeks. The strangest thing was the echoes. You'd say something, and sometimes your voice would come, "Back to you," but not in English. I'd hear words I didn't understand, but somehow knew what they meant. Lucas said he'd been hearing them since we arrived. One night, I checked the trail cameras we'd set up around the property. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were pictures of Lucas and me walking through areas we hadn't been to yet. Date stamps showed they were taken 3 days in the future. "That's impossible," Lucas said when I showed him. So is everything else about this place. I started digging through more of Grandpa's things, trying to make sense of it all. In a locked metal box under his bed, I found his military records. He wasn't just any soldier. He worked on a classified project studying weapons that used infrasound. Sound so low humans can't hear them. The documents mentioned a biological source they were studying, but never said what it was. The animals around us were acting stranger by the day. Herds of deer moved in perfect patterns across the valley. When I mapped their movements, they looked like the wave patterns I remembered from high school physics. Lucas was changing too. He'd wake me up in the middle of the night to tell me it was going to snow, and 6 hours later it would, even when the sky had been clear. He could feel storms coming 3 days away. He'd get these terrible headaches when the barometric pressure changed. "I can feel everything now," he told me one night. "It's like the air is talking to me." One morning, I found boot prints in the mud near the creek. Our boots. But I hadn't been there, and Lucas swore he hadn't either. I put my foot next to one print. It was mine, but the arch was different. The toes spread wider. "We need to leave," I said to Lucas that night. He just shook his head. "We can't. Don't you get it yet? This is why we're here. To understand." Understand what? He looked at me with eyes that seemed deeper, different somehow. What Grandpa found. What found him. What's been waiting for us. I tried calling for help on our satellite phone, but all I got was static that sounded almost like words. We were 6 months into our year at the cabin, and I was starting to think we might not make it out. The first time I lost time, I thought I was just tired. 1 minute I was chopping wood behind the cabin, and the next I was standing on a ridge 2 miles away, axe still in my hand. I had no memory of walking there. When I got back, Lucas was sitting on the porch, his eyes unfocused. "It happened to you too?" he asked. I nodded. "Where did you end up?" "By the big rock formation on the north side, the one shaped like a bowl." He rubbed his temples. "It's getting stronger, whatever it is." We started calling them acoustic fugue states. We'd black out and find ourselves somewhere else on the property. Sometimes minutes passed, sometimes hours. Once, I lost an entire day. About 7 months into our stay, Lucas found something. A natural cave in the mountainside that opened into a chamber with perfect acoustics. When you stood in the center and spoke, your voice would bounce around in ways that made your head spin. Lucas said there were standing waves in there, sound patterns that stayed in one place instead of moving. "This is what Grandpa was studying," he said, his voice echoing strangely. "Stand here." I moved to where he pointed. Instantly, I felt dizzy. The sound of my own breathing seemed to stretch and compress. For a split second, I saw Lucas as a little boy, then as an old man, all while he stood there unchanged. "Time isn't right in here," I whispered. The next day, I found more of Grandpa's papers. They were hidden inside the barrel of an old rifle in the gun cabinet. According to these documents, Grandpa hadn't just studied the sound phenomena here. He had led an expedition to capture what he called an acoustic entity. The entire research team disappeared, except for Grandpa. "We need to map this place properly," I told Lucas. "Figure out where these zones are." But our compasses went crazy near certain rock formations. The needle would spin and spin, never settling on north. We tried GPS devices, but they showed us in completely different locations every time. It was like the mountains themselves were moving. Then we found the research station. It was buried halfway up the mountain. The entrance collapsed. We spent 2 days digging it out. Inside were more papers, but these weren't military. They were biological research notes, talking about non-standard evolution in what they called an isolated hominid population. They were studying Sasquatch, Lucas said, his voice flat. But not like the stories. Something different. That night, I woke up to Lucas sitting at the kitchen table, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the wood. At first, I thought he was just fidgeting, but then I realized there was a pattern to it. Long tap, long tap, like code. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't look up. Talking back. "To who?" "The ones in the mountain. They've been trying to reach us for weeks." It took me a few days to figure out the pattern. It was binary code, ones and zeros. I'd learned it in the Army for emergency communications. Lucas had never learned it, but somehow he was using it perfectly. The paths through the forest started changing. A trail that took us to the creek one day would lead to the research station the next. I marked trees with my knife to find my way, but the marks kept moving to different trees. In the abandoned research station, we found old recording devices, wax cylinders from the early 1900s. We found a hand-cranked player in Grandpa's things and listened to his voice crackling through time. The selection process is nearly complete. The Patterson bloodline has proven most receptive. My grandsons will be the bridge. Lucas wasn't surprised. I've always known, he said, since I was 9, lost in these woods. I wasn't lost, I was chosen. He told me everything then. During those 3 days as a child, he had met something in the forest, beings that communicated through sound. The military had found him, used some kind of experimental procedure to suppress his memories. But being back here was bringing it all back. Our family is different, Ethan, he said. Grandpa bred for it, generation after generation, choosing partners with specific traits, all to make us, especially me. I noticed for the first time that the shape of his ears had changed slightly. The curve was different, the opening wider. When I pointed it out, he just nodded. It's starting, he said. I can hear them clearly now, all the time. I woke up one morning to find Lucas gone. His bed was empty, the sheets cold. I called his name, checked the property, but he was nowhere. Just as I was about to start a wider search, he walked out of the forest. His eyes were different, wider, with a strange amber tint I'd never seen before. You need to come with me, he said. It's time you see them. I followed him deep into the forest, to parts of the property we'd never explored. The trees grew thicker here, older. The silence was complete. No birds, no insects, nothing. Just dead quiet. We came to a cave entrance hidden behind a waterfall. They've been here for thousands of years, Lucas said, living, evolving, changing. Inside, the cave opened up into a massive underground system. The walls were smooth, almost polished in places, and carved into them were symbols, similar to the ones in Grandpa's journals. Who made these? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. They did, Lucas replied, and then I saw them. They looked like Sasquatch, tall, covered in dark hair, but different from the stories. Their heads were shaped strangely with pronounced ridges above large, intelligent eyes. They moved silently, despite their size. One approached us, towering over me. It made no sound, but Lucas nodded as if they were speaking. They don't use vocal cords, he explained. They evolved a different way. They communicate through infrasound, sound frequencies too low for most humans to hear. The creature reached out and touched my chest with one long finger. I felt a vibration pass through my body, making my vision blur. They're showing us the rest, Lucas said. Further into the cave system, we found something that made my stomach turn. There were chambers with steel doors, government facilities built right into the natural caves. Inside one were medical tables and equipment long abandoned. And worse, there were cells. Some still had remains inside, human remains, but changed. Elongated skulls, modified ear structures, extra joints in the fingers. Test subjects, Lucas said flatly. When the government discovered them in the 1950s, they tried to understand their communication abilities. They ran experiments trying to make humans who could hear the frequencies. Like us, I said. Like the Patterson family. Lucas nodded. Grandpa wasn't just part of the project. He believed in it. He thought the Sasquatch represented the next step in human evolution. The creatures showed us how they could move through the cave system in impossible ways. 2 caves that should be miles apart connected through tunnels that seemed to bend space itself. Lucas explained that they used precisely controlled sound waves to create what he called acoustic corridors, pathways where space folded in on itself. That's how I disappeared as a kid, he said. One minute I was on the hiking trail, the next I was miles away, inside their territory. We found a room full of military files, the complete history of what they called the Resonance Project. It had started in World War II when soldiers reported encountering strange creatures in the Pacific Northwest that could disappear and reappear at will. The government thought they'd found a potential weapon. They were trying to weaponize the Sasquatch ability, I said, flipping through the yellowed pages. Lucas shook his head. At first. But then the researchers started changing. Hearing things, knowing things they couldn't possibly know. The entities were influencing them. So they shut it down. They tried. But Grandpa had a different plan. He'd discovered that our family had a genetic mutation that made us more receptive to the infrasound communication. He started a breeding program, selecting partners with the right genetic markers. That's insane, I said. That's our heritage, Lucas replied. I'm just the first one who's fully compatible. The Sasquatch gathered around us, their massive bodies forming a circle. One of them, larger than the rest, placed its hands on either side of Lucas's head. Lucas gasped, his back arching. "What are they doing to you?" I shouted, trying to pull him away. "Showing me the network," he whispered. "They're connected, all around the world. Different colonies, all communicating through the Earth itself. They use the planet's magnetic field as a carrier wave. They've been here longer than us, Ethan. They were the first humans, but they evolved differently." When the creature released him, Lucas slumped to the ground. When he looked up at me, his eyes had changed completely. The iris is now a deep amber with vertical pupils like a cat's. "I can see it all now," he said. "The frequencies that connect everything. Plants, animals, the Earth itself. It's beautiful, Ethan. It's what we were meant to become." The walk back to the cabin was silent. Lucas moved differently now, smoother, more aware of everything around him. I kept thinking about how our whole lives had led to this moment. All those hunting trips Dad took us on, teaching us to track and move silently through the woods. The way Grandpa tested our hearing every summer with those strange games he made up. It wasn't just family tradition. It was training. "You're afraid of me now," Lucas said as we reached the cabin. It wasn't a question. "I don't know what to think," I admitted. "My whole life, I thought I was making my own choices. Now, I find out I'm just part of some experiment." "Not an experiment," Lucas corrected. "An evolution." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound from the forest seemed loaded with meaning now. The wind through the trees sounded like whispers. The creek bubbling over rocks seemed to form words. I wondered if I was starting to change too. The next morning, we hiked to a ridge overlooking the valley. From up here, I could see patterns in the landscape I'd never noticed before. The way the trees grew in perfect curves, the paths animals had worn forming complex spirals. Nothing was random. Everything was shaped by sound I couldn't hear. "You were always the protector," Lucas said suddenly. "Ever since we were kids. You joined the army to save people. I went into research to understand them. We took different paths to the same place." He was right. All my life I'd tried to keep others safe. But now I wondered, who was I protecting? By being here? Lucas? Myself? Or something else entirely? Grandpa's journal said we were the two sides of the same coin, Lucas continued. You adapt by fighting. I adapt by changing. As we explored more of the property, I started noticing how the environment itself seemed alive, responsive. There were places where all sound just disappeared, like stepping into a vacuum. Then there were spots where the softest whisper would bounce back so loud it hurt your ears. Near some of the rock formations, we found zones where electronics wouldn't work at all. My watch stopped. Lucas's phone died instantly. It was like stepping back in time. They create these dead zones on purpose, Lucas explained. They don't like our technology. It interferes with their communication. The weather had been getting stranger too. Storms would form out of nowhere, circling the property like guard dogs. Once, when we tried to hike out to the nearest town, a wall of fog appeared so thick we couldn't see 2 feet ahead. We had to turn back. They're protecting their territory, Lucas said. They know we're here now. They're watching us. I started to notice changes in myself, too. Small things at first. Hearing better at night, knowing when animals were nearby before seeing them. dreams filled with strange symbols and sounds that seemed to make sense while I was asleep, but vanished upon waking. At night, I'd sometimes find Lucas standing outside, his head tilted back, listening to something I couldn't hear. The moonlight made his changed eyes glow. His ears had continued to change shape, becoming slightly pointed at the tops, the inner structures more complex. "What's it like?" I asked him once. "Hearing them all the time?" "Like music you've always known but forgotten," he said. "Like coming home." One night, a terrible storm hit the mountains. Lightning struck so close it shook the cabin. In the brief flashes of light I saw them, dozens of the creatures standing in a circle around our clearing, watching the cabin. Not moving, not even when the rain poured down on them. Just watching. "They're waiting," Lucas said from behind me. "For you to decide." "Decide what?" "Whether you'll fight this or accept it. Whether you'll let yourself hear the frequency." I turned to look at him and realized with a shock that I could see him perfectly in the dark now, as if he was lit from within. And when I looked back out the window, I could see the creatures too, their eyes reflecting the same inner light. I wasn't just imagining things anymore. I was changing too. The next morning, I found a small wooden box on the porch. I hadn't heard anyone approach during the night, but there it was. Inside was an old tape recorder, the kind that uses cassettes, and a note in my grandfather's handwriting. "For Ethan, when the time comes." I took it inside and pressed play. The tape hissed and crackled before his voice came through, sounding old and tired. "Ethan, if you're hearing this, then Lucas has already begun to change. There's a place in the mountains where I found a ritual site. The Sasquatch use it for transformations. It's where they took Lucas when he was a boy. If you want to reverse what's happening to him, take him there during the new moon. The coordinates are on the back of this tape." I turned the cassette over. Sure enough, numbers were written there in faded ink. When Lucas came back from his morning walk, I showed him the recorder. "Did you know about this?" I asked. He shook his head. "But I know the place he's talking about. I've been dreaming about it." "Can it really reverse what's happening to you?" Lucas looked at me, his amber eyes reflecting the morning light. "Do you think I want to be reversed, Ethan?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "You want to stay like this? To become one of them?" "I want to become what I was always meant to be," he said quietly. "The question is, what do you want for me?" The new moon was 3 days away. I spent those days thinking about everything. Our childhood, our lives, what Grandpa had done to our family. Had he been crazy? Or had he seen something the rest of the world couldn't? On the night of the new moon, Lucas led me to the ritual site. It was a circular clearing high in the mountains, surrounded by stone pillars carved with the same symbols from Grandpa's journals. In the center was a pool of water so still it looked like black glass. "This is where they brought me when I was 9, Lucas said. "They sang to me in frequencies only they could make. They changed something inside me, opened a door that couldn't be closed again." The Sasquatch emerged from the trees, forming a circle around us. The largest one, the leader, I guessed, stepped forward and placed something on the ground between us. It was Grandpa's complete journal, bound in leather. I picked it up and opened to the last page. There, in clear writing, was the truth. The ritual is not to reverse the change. It is to complete it. Both brothers must enter the pool. Both must hear the frequency. Both must change. This is not the end of humanity, but its next step. We will not be replaced. We will evolve. I looked up at Lucas, understanding flooding through me. He wanted both of us to change. Lucas nodded. "You're the final piece, Ethan. You've always been the strongest, the most resistant. If you can accept this, anyone can. And if I don't, then you leave and I stay. But you'll never be whole again, knowing what you've left behind." The Sasquatch began to hum, a deep, vibrating sound that I felt more than heard. The water in The pool rippled in perfect geometric patterns, and suddenly I could hear it, the frequency that had been there all along, running beneath every sound in the forest, connecting everything living thing. I thought about my life back in the city, my job, my apartment. All of it seemed so small now, so disconnected. Here, I could be part of something ancient and alive. Will I still be me? I asked. Lucas smiled, his face both familiar and strange. You'll be more you than you've ever been. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the pool. The water felt warm, like blood. Lucas joined me, taking my hand. As we waded deeper, the Sasquatch's humming grew louder. I felt the change beginning, my hearing sharpening, my vision shifting. The world around me became richer, fuller, connected by threads of sound I'd never known existed. 1 year later, a military reconnaissance team entered the valley looking for signs of the Patterson brothers. They found the cabin empty, the brothers' belongings still there as if they'd just stepped out. What they didn't find was the hidden room beneath the floorboards, where we left our final report. A communication system designed to translate the Sasquatch frequencies into sounds humans could hear. From our home deep in the mountains, Lucas and I can hear the soldiers walking above. Soon, they'll find what we left them, the first bridge between their world and ours. We're not the missing brothers they're looking for. We're the ambassadors Grandpa always meant us to be, the first of many who will learn to hear the frequency that connects us all. Sometimes, on clear nights, I stand on the mountain ridge and send my thoughts out into the world. I can hear others like us now, scattered across continents, gradually awakening to the song that's always been there. We're not alone. We never were. We just needed to learn how to listen. My name is Frank Morrison. I'm 42 years old, and I live alone in a cabin in the woods of Vermont. Well, not completely alone. I have Rex, my German Shepherd. He's been with me since I came back from Korea 5 years ago. The war changed me. There are things I did there, things I saw that I can't talk about. Sometimes I wake up screaming in the middle of the night. That's why I moved way out here where no one can hear me, where I can't bother anyone. My cabin sits deep in the forest, about 10 miles from the nearest town. The locals don't come out this way much. They say this land is strange. The Abenaki people who lived here first called this area the Hungry Gap. They said things lived here that could eat time itself. I didn't believe in any of that nonsense when I bought this place. But that was before the dream started, before things began to change around me in ways they shouldn't. I keep a strict routine. Up at 6 a.m., coffee, check the perimeter, feed Rex, chop wood, check the traps, clean the guns. Dinner at 6 p.m. Whiskey until I can sleep without seeing their faces. The routine helps. Doctor at the VA said routines are good for fellows like me. Gives us control when our minds want to take us back to places we don't want to go. I write everything down in my journal. What I did, what I ate, the weather. It helps me keep track of time. Because sometimes time feels slippery here. Like when I think it's only been an hour of reading, but suddenly it's dark outside. Or when I could swear I just wound my watch, but it stopped again. Thomas Whitley drives up once a month with supplies. Strange fella. Skinny with eyes that don't blink enough. Last time he came, he asked if I was still having trouble sleeping at 3:15. I never told him about that. Never told anyone except Rex. How'd you know about that? I asked him. He just smiled, loading the last of the canned goods into my pantry. You mentioned it last time I was here. But I know I didn't. After he left, I found something strange while walking the property line. Stone markers, old ones covered in moss and lichen, and newer ones too, despite the ground being frozen solid for weeks. They formed a perfect circle around my cabin. I counted them. 13 in total. Rex doesn't like them. He won't go near them. Won't even look at them. The photos on my wall are another thing. I've got a picture of my old unit from Korea. Jenkins, Rodriguez, Lee, and the others. I don't like looking at it much, but I keep it to remember. Lately, though, I've noticed something odd. Their faces seem to be changing, just slightly. Their eyes seem to follow me around the room, and I swear they're all standing closer together in the center than they used to be. The radio's been picking up strange broadcasts, too. Scientific talk about solar flares causing temporal disturbances in northern regions. Then static. More and more static these days. The dreams are getting worse. Last week, I dreamed about finding a dead fox by the creek, its body twisted in an unnatural way. The next morning, I found the same fox in the same spot, exactly as I dreamed it. Yesterday, we got the first big snow of the season. I went out to check the property and found tracks in the snow. Not animal tracks, not human either. They started suddenly in the middle of open ground and disappeared just as abruptly, and they formed patterns, like symbols or writing. The same kind of symbols I saw once, carved into the walls of an ancient temple in Korea. A temple where I did something I've been trying to forget. Rex has been acting strange, too. Every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., he wakes up and stares at the corner of the cabin. Just stares and growls at nothing. 3:17 a.m., the exact time I made that deal in Korea. The deal that saved my life but cost me something else. Something I'm starting to think was much more valuable. I've been drinking more whiskey lately. It helps quiet the memories, helps me ignore the way time seems to skip and jump around me. But I'm starting to think the alcohol isn't helping anymore, because the things I'm seeing now, they can't all be in my head. Can they? The storm hit us 3 days ago. The worst blizzard I've seen since coming to Vermont. The snow piled up past my windows in hours. The wind howled like a wounded animal all night. Before the radio died completely, I caught one last message. They walk between the seconds. Then nothing but static. I'm alone now. Really alone. No one's getting up here for weeks, maybe months. Last night. I noticed my watch running backward. I wound it before bed like always. When I woke up at midnight to use the bathroom, the hands were moving in the wrong direction. Tick, 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 counting down to something. In my journal, I found entries. I don't remember writing. Pages filled with my handwriting, describing things that haven't happened yet. Or maybe they have, and I just don't remember. This morning, I let Rex out to do his business. He trotted out into the snow, same as always. 5 minutes passed. Then, 10. When he didn't come back, I grabbed my coat and flashlight. I found blood in the snow. Not much, just drops. I followed the trail, expecting it to lead into the woods. But it didn't. It curved around in an impossible pattern leading back to my cabin door. Then another trail leading to a different door, a door my cabin doesn't have. And another trail, and another. All Rex's blood, all impossibly leading to my cabin from different directions at once. Rex is gone. I've called and called until my voice is hoarse. Strange things are happening to me now. Yesterday, or was it today? I saw myself sitting at the kitchen table while I was standing by the stove. Not a reflection or a trick of the light. Me. Another me. He looked up and our eyes met for a second before he faded away. It's happening more and more. I'll walk into a room and see myself already there, doing something I did hours ago. Or something I haven't done yet. Outside, in the clearing behind my cabin, I found ice sculptures. Perfect, detailed ice sculptures of men in military uniform. My unit from Korea. Jenkins with his cigarette. Rodriguez cleaning his rifle. Lee with his lucky deck of cards. All of them frozen in ice, arranged exactly how they were in that ravine, where I left them. But I didn't make these sculptures. No human hand could have. The food in my pantry is spoiling before my eyes. Canned beans from last year's supply run now have expiration dates from 1977. 20 years in the future. The bread Thomas brought grows mold and collapses to dust in minutes. Last night, standing at my window, I saw something in the blizzard. Tall and thin, too tall to be human, pale as the snow around it, standing perfectly still while the storm raged, looking at my cabin, looking at me. When I blinked, it was closer, not like it had walked, like it had always been closer and I just hadn't noticed. I took a picture with my old camera. When the Polaroid developed, the thing was closer, still. And behind it, the background wasn't my snow-covered yard. It was my yard in summer, with a rusted truck I've never owned sitting in it. I don't sleep much now. When I do, I wake up feeling less, like something's been taken from me. Something important. Last night, I woke up frozen, unable to move. The tall thing was standing over my bed, not touching me, just feeding. I could feel it pulling something out of my head, something bright and warm. Memories, maybe, or time itself. I've started tearing at the wallpaper. There's something behind it. Pages and pages of writing. Different handwriting. Different people. All describing the same thing. It stands by my bed. It feeds on my thoughts. It's stealing my past. Some of the pages are dated 1943. Some 1897. Some have dates that haven't happened yet. I tried to leave yesterday, packed a bag, and started walking through the snow. I walked for hours in what should have been a straight line to the main road, but I ended up in a clearing I've never seen before. A clearing full of bodies frozen in the snow, their faces twisted, in terror, their bodies decaying at different rates. Some looked freshly dead, others were nothing but bone. One of them was wearing my jacket. I ran back to the cabin. Or I think I did. Because I'm here now. But something's wrong with the cabin. 2. The layout keeps changing. Rooms where there shouldn't be rooms. Doors that open onto solid walls. Windows that look out onto places that aren't Vermont. And all the while, that thing watches from the tree line, getting closer every time I look away, waiting. I think I know what it is now. The Abenaki were right. Some things can eat time itself. Know what it is now. The tall thing in the snow. It came to me last night. Not through the door, not through a window. It was just there, standing in the corner that Rex always growled at. It spoke without moving its mouth. Its voice sounded like dry leaves rustling. You invited me, it said, in the temple, in Korea. You called and I answered. And suddenly, I remembered. The temple in the mountains. My unit trapped in a ravine. Enemy soldiers closing in. Me, hiding in that ancient place while my friends died outside. The altar. The strange medallion I found. The words I spoke without. Understanding, begging for more time. For a way out. I don't eat flesh, the thing told me. I consume what might have been, what could be. The paths not taken, the futures never lived. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The thing reached out with fingers too long, too thin. It touched my forehead, and suddenly I was everywhere at once. I saw myself dying in Korea, shot by enemy soldiers. I saw myself making it home, starting a family, growing old, surrounded by grandchildren. I saw myself drinking until my liver failed. I saw 100 different lives, all the lives I could have lived if I hadn't made that bargain. And I felt the creature feeding on them one by one, drinking them down like sweet wine. Then Thomas Whitley walked through my front door. But it wasn't snowing outside anymore. It was summer. You understand now? Thomas asked. But his voice was, my voice? You're me, I said. The words felt heavy in my mouth. He nodded. A piece of you. A life you might have lived, the one where you never went to war, the one where you became the supply runner for this area. But you've been coming here for years. Time isn't a straight line here, he said. Not anymore. Not since you broke it. More people walked in, a man in a forest ranger uniform, another in clothes from what looked like the 1800s, a woman in a dress I'd never seen before, all with my face, all looking at me with my own eyes. We're all you, Thomas said, different versions, different times, different choices, but all trapped here. How long? I asked. The ranger laughed. How do you measure time when it's broken? I've been here since 1943. Ben over there arrived in 1897. Sarah won't be born until 1963. I don't understand. The tall thing moved between them. You've been feeding me well, it said. So many versions of you. So many different fears and hopes to consume. A feast that never ends. That's when I saw the footlocker at the end of my bed. My old army footlocker. I'd brought it back from Korea, never opened it since. Inside were my old uniform, some letters, and something else. The bronze medallion from the temple. I grabbed it, and the moment my fingers touched it, memories flooded back. Not just my memories. Memories from all the other versions of me. The ranger finding the medallion in a dead hiker's pack. Thomas digging it up in his garden. Sarah receiving it as a gift. The ritual, the words, the way to trap this thing. I felt something wet on my face. Tears, but not from me, from the thing. You cannot, it hissed. You have tried before, all of you. You always fail. I looked around at the other versions of myself. Have we? Or have we been working on this across time? Each of us learning a little more, each of us getting closer. The walls of my cabin shifted, changed. For a moment, they were the walls of that temple in Korea, the place where this all began. I held up the medallion and began to speak the words I found carved in my mind. Ancient words. Words in a language no human tongue was meant to speak. The thing screamed, a horrible sound like ice cracking. It lunged for me, but the others, the other me's, formed a circle around it. Now, I shouted, all of us together. We spoke as one voice. The medallion grew hot in my hand, burning my palm. The air in the cabin twisted, folded in on itself. The thing thrashed and howled. If you trap me, you trap yourselves, all of you, forever. I looked at Thomas, at the ranger, at all the versions of me scattered across time. We know, I said. In that moment, I understood the truth. I hadn't been alive for years, maybe decades. The thing had been keeping me, all of us, preserved. Little packets of consciousness to feed from when it got hungry. But now we had it. The medallion pulsed with light. The cabin walls bent inward. The thing's form collapsed like paper in fire, folding into the medallion. And with it, I felt myself being pulled in too. All of us, every version of Frank Morrison that ever existed or could exist. As the world around me faded, I had one last thought. At least it ends here. At least no one else will suffer this fate. I was wrong. Spring, 1958. The snow has melted. The road to the old Morrison cabin is clear again. A blue pickup truck bumps along the dirt path, stopping in front of the silent building. A woman steps out, late 20s, carrying a small suitcase. Her name is Anna Webb. She's Frank Morrison's niece. Uncle Frank, she calls, knocking on the door. No answer. The door swings open with a creak. The cabin is empty. Dust covers everything. A coffee mug sits on the table, half full, long gone cold. A book lies open on the armchair as if someone just stepped away for a moment, but the layer of dust says no one has been here for months. Uncle Frank, Anna calls again, walking through the cabin. Nothing seems disturbed. No signs of struggle. Just emptiness. as if Frank Morrison simply vanished in the middle of his daily routine. In the bedroom, she finds his journal on the nightstand. The last entry is dated December 17, 1957. The snow is heavy tonight. Radio says it's the worst storm in 50 years. Rex keeps growling at the corner. I keep seeing things in the blizzard. If anyone finds this, know that I tried to stop it. I tried to end it here. Anna shivers despite the spring warmth. On the bed sits an old army footlocker. Inside, folded neatly, is Frank's uniform from Korea, letters from home, a faded photograph of his unit, and something else, a small bronze medallion, on a leather cord, old, very old, strange symbols etched into its surface. Anna picks it up, turning it over in her hand. For a moment, she thinks she hears a whisper, a voice that sounds almost like her uncle's, but not quite. Don't, it seems to say. Put it back. Leave this place. But the voice is so faint. Maybe just the wind through the trees outside. She slips the medallion into her pocket. That night, as she sleeps in what was once her uncle's bed, she dreams of a tall, thin figure standing in the corner of the room, watching her, waiting, and somewhere, trapped inside the medallion now hanging around her neck, Frank Morrison screams a warning she cannot hear. In the morning, Anna makes coffee, sits at the kitchen table. She thinks about staying here. The cabin is hers now, after all. A peaceful place in the woods, a place where she could start over after her divorce. Outside, the first stones of a new circle are already forming in the earth, 13 of them, a perfect circle around the property. At exactly 3:17 a.m. that night, a German shepherd that isn't there will begin to growl at an empty corner of the cabin, and the cycle will begin again. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm 47 years old, and I used to be someone important in the world of anthropology. Used to be. That was before I got caught making up stories about where I found some old Native American artifacts. I said they came from one place, but they really came from somewhere else. I did it to make myself look smarter, to get ahead. Pretty stupid, right? So now I'm here, starting over in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. The house I bought is cheap because nobody wanted. It sits on an old piece of land that once belonged to the Dene people. That's what the Navajo call themselves. A realtor would call this place historic. The locals call it cursed. I know the stories. Spanish conquistadors came through here in the 1600s and did terrible things. They destroyed sacred sites and killed many people. But that's ancient history, or so I thought. I've always been fascinated by water gods and the rituals people create around them. It's been my life's work, collecting stories about water purification ceremonies from cultures all over the world. Some might call it an obsession. I call it research. This property has something special, an underground water system that was built centuries ago by indigenous engineers. The way they redirected the water through the rock is nothing short of genius. It's still working today, which is amazing considering how old it is. When I was looking to buy this place, several of my old colleagues from the university warned me against it. That land has a history, Thomas, they said. Some places are better left undisturbed. I thought they were just trying to keep me from making a good discovery, something that might let me back into the academic world. I should have listened. Yesterday, I found something hidden in the wall of the main water cistern. It was a small, waterproof box containing journals written by Spanish missionaries who lived here centuries ago. My Spanish is rusty, but I could make out enough to feel a chill run down my spine. They described something they called El que bebe almas, the one who drinks souls. I told myself it was just superstition, the ramblings of frightened men trying to make sense of a world they didn't understand. But as I sit here writing this, watching the sun set over the desert, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Not by something outside my house, but by something inside it. Something in the water. I should pack up and leave. That would be the smart thing to do, but I've never been very good at walking away from a mystery. And besides, the water here is the purest I've ever tasted, even if it does have that strange metallic tang that lingers on my tongue long after I've finished drinking. I'm probably just being paranoid. The isolation and the altitude are getting to me. Tomorrow, I'll start documenting the water system properly. A scientific approach will clear my head. After all, it's just water. What harm could it possibly do? It's been 3 weeks since I moved in. I've been keeping busy, writing down everything I learn about the water system here. The cisterns are amazing. They collect rainwater and somehow keep it clean and cool, even in this desert heat. But something strange is happening to me. Yesterday, I lost 4 hours. Just gone. I remember making coffee at 9 a.m., and suddenly it was 1 p.m. and I was standing in the backyard with dirt under my fingernails. I must be getting used to the altitude still. That has to be it. Today, I found something that made my heart race. I was cleaning out the main cistern when my flashlight caught something on the wall. Pictures carved into the stone. Not just any pictures. They showed people, but with something inside them, moving between them like water. The carvings were labeled in a language I didn't know, but one word kept appearing. Thirst. I took so many photos. This could be important. This could be my way back into academia. As I was heading back to the house, I saw an old truck parked at the edge of my property. An elderly Native American man was placing something on the ground, a small bundle wrapped in red cloth. When he saw me watching, he didn't run away. Instead, he looked right at me and said, "It wears borrowed skins." Then he got in his truck and left. His name is Nicholas Tsosi. The lady at the local store told me he's respected in the community, knows all the old stories. I should talk to him, but those words keep echoing in my head. It wears borrowed skins. The dream started that night. I'm walking along underground rivers that flow the wrong way, uphill instead of down. There are voices in the water speaking languages that sound ancient and strange. I wake up drenched in sweat, but still feeling thirsty. So thirsty. The water from the main cistern has a weird taste, like metal, but not exactly. I took a sample to test it, thinking it might be contaminated. The results came back today, and they don't make any sense. The mineral balance is perfect. Too perfect. It matches the fluid that surrounds our brains and spinal cords. That can't be right. I'll send another sample to a different lab. This afternoon I found something I wish I hadn't. I was digging near the back of the property when my shovel hit. Something solid. It was a burial site. The bodies were preserved, not like mummies exactly, but not decomposed either. They were soaking in a fluid that looked just like the water from my cistern. I should have called the authorities right away. That's what a good scientist would do. But I didn't. I covered it back up. I need to know more first. I went to the library in town and looked through old records. Every 50 years, this area has faced terrible droughts. Farms failed, people died, or moved away. But this property, it stayed green. It stayed alive. There are no records of wells or irrigation systems. Just this place, standing like an oasis in the desert. Last night, I noticed something in the bathroom mirror that scared me. I thought it was just dry skin at first, but when I looked closer with my magnifying glass, my skin had tiny scales, almost too small to see. They catch the light when I turn just right. I should leave. I know I should, but I can't stop thinking about the water. It calls to me, and I'm so thirsty. It's been 2 months now. Something is happening to the land, around me. The Johnson farm down the road has dried up completely. Their well, which worked fine for 20 years, is now just dust. The Martinez family's pond is gone, too. Everyone is talking about drought, about climate change. But my cisterns? They're full, more than full. I haven't seen rain in weeks, but every morning, the water level is higher than the day before. It's like the water is coming from nowhere, from nothing. I can't stop drinking it. I wake up at night, my throat burning, and stumble to the kitchen, for glass after glass. I've started keeping a gallon jug by my bed. I drink it all before morning. My lips are cracked, my skin feels like paper, but no matter how much I drink, I can't satisfy this thirst. Yesterday, I finally decided to excavate more around the cistern. What I found was a room, a chamber carved right into the bedrock. The walls were covered with carvings showing people being prepared somehow. Their bodies dried out in a specific way, preserving them but removing all moisture. Not like Egyptian mummies, but something else, something worse. There were tools there too, ancient stone and bone tools that looked medical, precise. I recognized. Some of them from my anthropology days. They were for removing skin, peeling it away from muscle and bone. But they weren't dusty or rusted. They looked used. Recently. When I went back to the house, I noticed something in the mirror. The pattern on my skin has changed. When I get really thirsty, it forms shapes, the same symbols I saw on the walls of the chamber. I traced them with my finger, and for a second I felt something move under my skin, something that wasn't me. I drove into town today and found Nicholas Tsosi at the local diner. The moment he saw me, his face went pale. "You should not have come here," he said. "You were foretold." The scholar who creates his own ending, I asked him what he meant, and he told me about the legends of his people, about a being that lived in the water before there were people, before there were animals, a being that learned to move from one body to another during times of great thirst. "It has been waiting for you," he said. "It has been preparing for you for longer than you know." I laughed it off, but on the drive home, I started thinking about my career, about how I'd always been drawn to water deities, to purification rituals. I remembered professors suggesting research paths, conferences happening just when I needed them, job openings at just the right universities. Had I really chosen any of it? Or had I been guided here, to this place all along? That night, as I was washing my face, I noticed something terrifying. My reflection moved a split second before I did. Just a tiny delay, but it was there. I wasn't seeing myself in the mirror. I was seeing something else, something wearing me like a costume. I took a sample of the cistern water to a lab in Albuquerque. The scientist called me the next day, confusion in her voice. "This isn't possible," she said. "The dating puts this water at over 4 billion years old. That's older than Earth's oceans. There must be some contamination." But I knew there wasn't. Back in the underground chamber, I found a collection of tools I hadn't noticed before. Knives, needles, hooks, all designed for one purpose, to separate skin from flesh. And they weren't ancient. Some of them were modern, surgical steel, and they were clean, like they'd been used recently. I took a sample of my own blood and looked at it under my microscope. My cells were changing. The walls around them weren't normal anymore. They looked like something from the earliest days of life on Earth, simple membranes that could let almost anything pass through. I spent all night researching the history of this property. It took some digging, but what I found chilled me to the bone. The owners going back centuries had nothing in common, different nationalities, religions, professions. Except for one thing. They all disappeared during drought years. No bodies ever found. Just gone. Like they'd evaporated into the dry air, and now the weather report says we're entering the worst drought in 50 years. And my skin feels loose, like it might slide right off if I pull too hard. I should run. But where would I go? The thirst would follow me. It's inside me now. And besides, I'm curious. What happens next? What am I becoming? I don't know how many days have passed. Time feels slippery, like trying to hold water in cupped hands. I know it happened, though, the moment when everything changed. When I finally met it, I was in the cistern, my hands trailing through the cool water, when my reflection rippled and changed. It wasn't me anymore. It was still my face, but the eyes were different. Ancient. They had seen the birth of stars, the first cells dividing in primordial pools. "Hello, Thomas," my reflection said, but its lips moved differently than the words I heard. "I've been waiting so long to meet you properly." I should have screamed or run, but I didn't. I felt calm, like meeting an old friend after many years. "What are you?" I asked. "I am the first thirst," it said. "I was here when life began, when the first simple creatures learned to want. Before there were eyes to see or minds to think, there was thirst." It told me its story, how it had been a simple awareness in Earth's earliest waters, how it had learned to move between primitive organisms, guiding their evolution, their thirst driving them to complexity. It showed me memories older than humanity, the rise and fall of ancient oceans, the first creatures crawling onto land. "I need you, Thomas," it said, "and you need me." I went deeper into the underground chambers that night, following passages I somehow knew existed. That's where I found them. The skins. Dozens of them, preserved and arranged in a perfect timeline. The oldest ones were cracked and brown, made from people who lived on this land before Europeans arrived. The newest ones looked like they could have been removed yesterday. "They weren't strong enough," the voice in my head explained. "Their bodies rejected the change. But your blood is perfect." It explained how it had watched humanity evolve, had guided certain bloodlines toward genetic traits it needed. My bloodline. It had influenced my entire academic career, nudging me toward water deities, toward this place, toward our meeting. "We can be so much more together, Thomas," it whispered, its voice moving from the water to my blood with terrifying ease. It showed me how it could move its consciousness through any water, from the cistern into my glass, from my glass into my bloodstream, from my blood into my cells. We were already sharing space inside my body. I spent days researching, looking through Nicholas Tsosi's family records that he reluctantly shared, finding DNA protection rituals that might help me. There were ceremonies that could contain water spirits, but they required sacrifice. Not blood or life, but knowledge. I would have to give up everything I had learned about the entity, wipe my mind clean of its secrets. I found another chamber, deeper than the others. The walls showed the entity's history, how it had evolved from simple awareness to complex consciousness, how it had moved between hosts for millions of years. In the center was a pool of water so clear it was almost invisible. My transformation was speeding up. My skin didn't just feel loose anymore. It was becoming something else entirely. A detachable layer, like a wetsuit I could step into and out of. When I pressed my fingers against my arm, they sank in with no resistance, no pain. "Your ancestors were chosen carefully," the entity told me one night. "For 15 generations, I've guided your family line. Your great-great-grandfather worked with water rights in Colorado. Your grandmother studied hydrology. Your father's fascination with fishing wasn't an accident. Water has always called to your blood." I looked through old family photos and saw it now. The same slightly too wide eyes, the same pattern to our movements. Had any of us ever been fully human? My memories were changing too, melting into the entity's ancient awareness. I remembered things I couldn't possibly know, how it felt when the first fish developed lungs, the taste of water from a spring that dried up 10,000 years ago. I was becoming less Thomas Reed every day, but I was becoming more of something else, something older, something that would never die of thirst. The drought has gotten worse. On the news, they're calling it the worst in a century. Towns nearby are being evacuated. But here, in my little corner of the desert, the water flows freely. I've been studying day and night, my mind swimming between ancient knowledge and modern science. I found something in Nicholas Tsosi's family records, a ritual that combined old Dene ceremonies with modern understanding of water systems. A way to maybe trap the entity, or at least control it. "You don't want to do this, Thomas," the entity whispered as I gathered materials. "We are meant to be together. The final evolution." But some part of me, the human part, was still fighting. I set up the ritual in the deepest chamber where the oldest water pooled. I used modern materials, PVC pipes, chemical sensors, purification filters, alongside the ancient symbols carved into stone. Science and spirit, working together. Nicola helped me, though he wouldn't come onto the property. He stood at the boundary and sang words in Dene that seemed to make the air vibrate. He gave me a small pouch filled with corn pollen and told me to mix it with the water at exactly the right moment. "It won't work," the entity said, its voice now coming from my own mouth even when I wasn't speaking. "You can't trap water. It always finds a way out." The ritual took 7 days to prepare. By the end, my skin was hanging loose around my muscles. In the mirror, I looked like a person wearing a Thomas suit that was 2 sizes too big. But I could feel the power building in the chamber below. The ancient symbols beginning to glow with a light that wasn't light. The water churning and fighting against what I was doing. On the 7th night, I went down into the chamber for the final part of the ritual. The water was angry now, splashing against the stone walls, forming shapes like hands that tried to grab me. "If you do this, you will lose everything," the entity warned. "Your knowledge, your memories, your future." "I've already lost those things," I said, my voice sounding strange in my ears. "You took them from me." I began the final steps, pouring the modern chemicals into specific channels, reciting the ancient words Nicholas had taught me, cutting my palm to let 7 drops of blood fall into the center pool. The entity fought back. The water rose up in a column, forming a rough human shape. It grabbed me, pulled me toward the deep pool. "We can be gods together," it promised. "Never thirst again. Never die." For a moment, I hesitated. The offer was tempting. To be more than human. To share consciousness with something that had witnessed the birth of life itself. But then I remembered the skins in the other chamber. All those people before me, used and discarded. I thought about what would happen to the towns nearby. If the entity grew stronger, the thirst would spread. I broke free and completed the ritual, mixing the corn pollen with the water and reciting the final words. The chamber began to shake. The water twisted and screamed, not with a human voice, but with the sound of glaciers, cracking, of underground rivers changing course. The entity was being trapped, forced into a single form, a single place. But something unexpected happened. As the entity was pulled into the containment I'd created, it grabbed onto me, not my body, but something deeper. My consciousness, my self. For a moment that felt like eternity, we were suspended between states, neither fully separate nor fully joined. And in that moment, knowledge flowed between us. I saw the beginning of everything through its ancient awareness. It learned. Compassion through my human heart. When it was over, I wasn't just Thomas Reed anymore. But I wasn't gone either. That was 5 years ago. The drought eventually broke, and the surrounding communities survived. I still live on the property, though I've made some changes. The underground chambers are sealed now, with both modern, concrete, and ancient blessings. People in town know me as Thomas, the helpful guy who knows a lot about water conservation. I've helped several farms set up systems that use a fraction of the water they used to need. Nicholas Tsosi visits sometimes. He never says much, but he watches me carefully. I think he knows that the ritual didn't work exactly as planned. That some kind of compromise was reached. I still get thirsty sometimes. A deep, ancient thirst that no amount of water can quench. But I've learned to live with it. We've learned to live with each other. The entity sleeps most of the time, contained. within a carefully constructed system of pools and channels beneath the property. But sometimes, when I'm alone, I sit by the main cistern and have conversations with my reflection. It tells me about the world before humans, about the taste of the first rains that fell on Earth. In return, I teach it about music, about kindness, about being human. We are neither fully separate nor fully joined, neither monster nor man, just something in between, like the land itself, shaped by ancient forces but adapted to modern times. And when the next drought comes, as it surely will, we'll be ready. We'll protect this place, these people, not by taking, but by sharing, not with thirst, but with wisdom. After all, water always finds a way to flow. The trick is learning how to direct it,